All right, this is Truth Will Set You Free, number 14, talking about all the current events in today's world, as well as crisis readiness, a lot about Chicago and the current state of unrest in Chicago as well. And of course, we've got Emily Robbins coming on to talk about self-empowerment. So we've got some great guests between Melissa Agnes, Emily Robbins, and of course, our typical hosts, Cashley Kelly, Aaron Smalls, Curtis Harkness, and of course, me, Anthony Michael Russo. We'll be starting in just about a minute. Start sharing this out for people so we can get this party started. This is also available on Apple Podcasts as well as YouTube. So please join us here on Facebook, YouTube, or on our podcast, which will be up tomorrow. Thank you, guys. And we're looking forward to getting started with Truth Will Set You Free here on the Be The Change Network in just about 2 minutes. Just a reminder, as you guys make your way in for Truth Will Set You Free, please go ahead and put in the comment box where you guys are from. Going to be saying hello to people as they come in. Melanie, hello. Renee, hello. Kristen, Commander, thank you for the candle. Welcome. Jennifer Dean, hello. We got people from New Jersey. We got people from all over Buffalo. Nicole, hello. Linda, again, start welcoming yourselves. Share it out there. Love to see a bunch of you guys over there. Trying to see in the backstage. I think Cash is making comments. He's doing something creative. Who knows? We're going to get started in just about 1 minute here on Truth Will Set You Free. So please, again, continue to share it out. Looking forward to having a great conversation this week involving things going on in Chicago, how to have a conversation, body image, different things. Next week, we are going to be talking about political beliefs, a little bit more polarizing, but hopefully we'll be able to provide some information and have some people coming together. Again, this week's going to be a lot of fun talking about different topics, different ways of looking at things, different ways to look at emotion, empathy, all these different items. So very excited about today's show, and we'll be starting in less than 1 minute. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to #BeTheChange and Truth Will Set You Free. I've got some fantastic guest hosts as well as guests to have on the show. Curtis, I can already tell, is ready as he is interestingly reading a book called The Last Arrow. Got it. And Cash, meanwhile, is texting his agent. Fantastic. Aaron is looking fresh like Pharrell. It's going to be an exciting show. I see a lot of comments in the box. Welcome again. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of intros to do, and we have some great guests on today's show. So I am very excited. So we're just going to go ahead and begin. This is our first show, as many of you guys know, since we learned of the passing of Frank Lockwood, who is a huge supporter. He was a huge supporter, huge fan of what we did, and a guest host as well. The one thing that I love about this show with Truth Will Set You Free is it brings us all together. And what some people may not know is he had a lot of faith in what we do with Be The Change and what we do on this show to bring people together. The goal with Be The Change is to not impress upon each other's political viewpoints, but instead show that we actually have more in common than we have different, and to impress hope upon each other by creating conversation and allowing people to realize that we're allowed to have a difference in opinion. And one big thing that was passed on from Serena, one of Frank's friends, was that with everything that went on this year with COVID and everything that went on this year with the rioting, the protesting, and what happened with George Floyd, Frank was getting to a point where he was getting frustrated and losing hope. And the relationship that we built with him in his last couple of months, he never got to tell this to me, but he told this Serena, what we do as a group, what you guys do that are watching our shows and watch what we talk about and engage and change, gave him hope for the future of what we can be as a group and as a society. So what we will take with us from him is that no matter what we do it with purpose. We do it because somebody like Frank, who brought light in so many people's lives, whether it was their whole life or a brief moment, is that we have the power to be the change in each other's hearts and in each other's minds. So I want to thank you, Frank, for being a part of this show and being a part of everything that we do. So, and you will be forever. So I want to say that. And with that, Frank will be, we'll have a memorial episode for Biscuits and Gravy on Monday. And we'll have all the different guests that have been with him on a show in the brief moments, and we'll play a video of all of his funny moments on the show. So we're looking forward to that. So that'll be Monday night at 7:00 Eastern time. That'll be our first Biscuits and Gravy back. So that's exciting, and it'll be a time for us all to come together and tell Frank how we feel. So we've got that. Updates real quick before we do our intros. Streetlight Unity stuff. The email is going to be going out to all the volunteers. If you are a volunteer of Streetlights, setting up a Zoom call next week, because guess what? All 50 states are set up. We are going to have our Facebook groups ready to go, and you guys are going to be able to spread love all around the United States of America. And for those of you that wanted a pink Unite Don't Fight Lady shirt, it's coming up next week along with coffee mugs. So with that said, it's time to do our intros. What's that, Curtis?
I want a pink Unite.
Of course you do. It's a V-neck. I know how you roll. So with that, Curtis, we're going to start with you. These are our guest hosts for the show, our typical co-hosts, I should say. We've got Aaron Smalls, Curtis Harkness, and Cashley Kelly. I'm going to go ahead and get it started with you, Curtis. How's it going in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm in Atlanta, but I really wish I was on the beach, as you could tell in my awesome, amazing floral Hawaiian-ish type of shirt. I don't know. It's got some pictures, and you know what I usually do when I go to the beach is snorkel and, and kind of get rid of, what's going on in the world and give yourself a break. So after this, I'm probably just going to take a little bit of a, just go to the bathtub, and just,
I have no idea what that is. It's so weird.
It's a snorkel mask that I had for the season.
Yes. I could see one of our guests in backstage right now, Emily, finds that very, very funny. She's also terrified at the same time. I can see it in her face. Aaron, what's cracking with you, my friend?
I feel like Curtis has been outside. He looks darker to me. I
have.
That's possible.
I've been running.
He can say that. I can't say that. How's it going, Aaron?
Curtis, you look good, man. You look good. The mask is questionable, but you look good, brother. Things are good up here in New York, I'm getting ready to fly down to Orlando. I'll be down there for a little while, visiting my mom, some friends. A lot of good stuff. The show about hosting that I've been wanting to work on for a long time and get that up and running. And that is about 85, 90% complete. So I'm very excited about that. I read Like Curtis too. This is a book about Robert Smalls. I'm trying to find out if I'm related. And last but not least, I'm going to do this not only for Cash, but for Dr. Frank, because he is a person to be celebrated. So
100%. Well, thank you, Aaron. And now, Cash, you've also got some news. Obviously, you popped one out. Well, technically you didn't, but based on your social media, I'm not going to lie, how much you were complaining, Cash, you would have thought you had the child. But anyways, Cash, what's going on in your world?
Let me tell you, do you know how hard it is to watch my woman be in pain? It hurt me more than it hurt her. I'm joking. No, that was a joke. I apologize to all the ladies that have given birth. You guys are amazing. I was just joking, okay? No, but seriously, it's just great, man. Well, how everything was doesn't matter anymore. Let me just say that. What was going on doesn't matter. I get to hold my baby girl. Nova is adorable. She looks like a little me, and that's dope to me because I like how I look. So and she's all cuddly and stuff, and she's so little. And Erica like loves me immensely for some reason now. Like all the evil stuff that she felt about me before is just gone away. And I have all my babies here with me, so I'm good, man. That's what made me smile today, seeing all my babies together, and they see Nova for the first time today. That's the first time they got to see Nova today. And yeah, it's today's been really good. It's been a good day.
That is awesome. Well, congratulations. And part of that news I'm going to share is,
Wait, before you even say it, can you hold that book back up again, Aaron? Real close. That looks like Curtis. Go back down. Go to the face. Tell me that don't look like Curtis.
Oh, that's weird. I'm going to say yes.
Boom. You're a freaking time traveler. Go ahead.
I just wrote the book. Making jokes. I just wrote the book. That's all.
You the man, brother.
There's another one.
That looks like me.
You guys are ridiculous.
Looks like Anthony.
I love it.
That was well played. So Cash, so interestingly enough, Cash and I, as some of you guys know, we have not known each other very long, but again, it's very interesting as we bring up Frank, you bring up the circle of life and you bring up the way things happen. And ironically enough, Cash's baby girl's name is Nova. And Nova actually has a lot of meaning, which means a very bright light for a short period of time, which is exactly the way to explain Frank. And as Frank left this world, Nova came in, and Cash asked me to be Nova's godfather, which I, of course, accepted. And I could not be more happy to have a child as a part of the family of my life that can bring light and bring a shine during any moment of darkness. And I'm very excited to be a part of that. So Cash, congratulations. Everybody, a little round of applause for Cash. Good job, buddy. You didn't do it.
The pleasure was all mine.
What does that name mean in Spanish?
Huh? I don't know. Not sure. Do you
know?
For
the guys, it's called no go.
No go. Curtis.
He just called me Mexican.
No, I said, what is that in Spanish?
Why would I know? Huh? What? Because I used to hang around a whole bunch of Latins in my neighborhood.
No, I was just asking.
You see how I'm just being a regular American now. You see, that's how America is now.
I don't know if that's regular. I don't know if that's regular.
Did you?
I got a knock joke for you guys.
Please save Curtis's bad joke. Go for it, Aaron.
I don't have a joke. What do we got next?
Okay. All right. Knock. Let's hear what's next. All right, we're going to go ahead and get the show started because we've got some obvious things to talk about. College football season, Big Ten just canceled, which means I think all the other schools are going to follow suit. I actually just talked to – you don't think so? Who are they going to play? They're just going to play themselves? So we've got I talked to actually the cross-country coach, one of the cross-country coaches from Ohio State randomly on a LinkedIn call earlier, and just talking about the whole situation. We might talk sports in a couple weeks on this because I feel like in a couple weeks there will be no sports. It'll probably be perfect timing. So Big Ten canceled, and then obviously the big news is in Chicago. And before we really get into that, we're going to talk about Melissa. She's going to come up first. She'll be on in just a minute. Emily Robbins is going to come on after that. So this is going to be a show a little bit about inclusion, how to have conversations, and also to have some difficult discussions as well. So first, I do want to talk briefly about what's going on in Chicago. As you know, and of course, we've got a vice presidential candidate. Kamala Harris is now the VP. That just got done about an hour ago. She's going to be the VP for Joe Biden. Calm down, Cash. Chill. Calm, boy. Calm down. Calm. Boy. Down, boy.
He's fine. He's good.
Oh, yeah. I saw him breathing heavy. So anyways, with that said, so there is some obvious big news. There's been explosions all over the world. We had Beirut last week. We had Russia. We had Baltimore. There's some weird shit going on right now. And then on top of it, you didn't know about the Russia one was a pretty big explosion. Nothing like Beirut, though. Beirut was crazy.
Nope, I didn't hear nothing about it. I've been in the hospital having a baby.
Did you hear about Beirut getting rid of its entire government from all the riots that they were having because of what went down? So, it's crazy stuff.
Yeah, true story. And yeah, Curtis, the way that you're talking, I love how you have presence, but I need you to just lean back just a little bit because you're on a hot mic.
Am I Fat Joe?
Yeah, I don't know. You have such a booming, powerful voice. Our podcast our podcast lady, she said, "You guys do a fantastic job. Can you tell Curtis not to eat the microphone?" So, thank you very much. With that said, we could say, you know what, we'll save Chicago for once Melissa gets up here. Obviously, Chicago is a huge deal right now. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest on this one. Very excited because I've talked about Melissa several times on other shows because she is somebody that I look to in how to have conversations with people. And obviously right now, that's what we're doing. We're having conversations with people and having the hard conversations. She's the one that got me thinking about how to meet emotion with empathy. And we're going to talk about all that stuff. But Melissa is a recognized leading authority on crisis reputation management, brand protection, all these different things. She's a phenomenal speaker, communicator. And she's spoken in front of governmental organizations, people all over the world, in country, world, etc. She's phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to talking about crisis because that's what we're going through right now. So, Melissa Agnes, welcome to the virtual stage.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Good.
So,
yeah.
Melissa, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
About me?
About your couch, about your chaise lounge. Yes, about you.
Unfolds. So me. So my work is crisis readiness. Is my brand. Is my work. I help organizations, government, and corporate globally implement what I call a crisis-ready culture. So it's more than just having a book, a plan that's very stagnant and siloed sitting on a shelf, which is status quo that I'm fighting against right now within my industry. But really having an ingrained culture where you have an entire organization, across the board, whether you're a team of 10 or a team of 10,000 or 100,000, that understands intrinsically and is empowered to identify risk when it materializes, because you never know who's going to be the first one to detect something that needs to be flagged. Then can understand quickly how to assess its material impact. So is it an issue versus is it a crisis or anything in between, and what does that mean? And then from there, status quo and crisis management is about mitigation. You mitigate escalation, you mitigate material impact. I take it a step further through my concepts and the work that I do, which is I want every organization, ultimately every person, to come out of any type of negative event with increased trust and credibility in their brand. Because in order to get that increased trust and credibility when you are put to the test, it means that you are doing right by the people you are designed to serve. And that requires a cultural approach, mindset, empowerment, all of these things. My book launched 2 years ago called Crisis Ready, Building an Invincible Brand in an Uncertain World. And thank you. What frustrated me when the book launched was I realized how differently I was doing it from the rest of my industry, let's call it. Because I was being approached once, all of my methodology, all of my ideology is in that book. It's all there, it's all available. It's the precise roadmap. And organizations were coming to me and saying, we've invested and we were completely wrong. And as a result, we're bleeding reputation, or we're bleeding money, and we're jaded and we don't believe in this anymore. And so I've spent the last 2 years trying to answer the question of, if I don't believe in the business model of agency, because I don't, and I want to create a crisis-ready world, because to me that means having a world that is a kinder, safer, more balanced place for all of us. How do I do that? And that is 2 years later. Anthony knows a lot about this because he's been, I have beautiful windows here in New York City, and Anthony has been in my jam sessions where those are my whiteboards, helping me kind of answer these questions as we go. And the Crisis Ready Institute is my startup. And it is seeking to answer those questions, to solve that huge, massive problem. And with that, I will stop talking and let you guys talk and say thank you for having me. And I'm really sorry about for Frank, and congratulations, Cash, on Nova.
Thank you.
She was taking a page out of Curtis's playbook. Just you talk until you want to stop talking. It's totally fine.
She's just speaking truth. Don't even,
share it and stop.
So she's speaking truth. That's all it is. Get it, girl.
I know the way.
Melissa, where are you based? Where are you based?
Right now I'm in New York City. Home is New York City. Home originally is Montreal. I'm Canadian. And I've been here going on 2 years, I think. Yeah. I just came back from Florida, though.
That apartment building has a bowling alley in the basement.
I have beat Anthony at, for the record, Mr.
Okay.
Almost Pro.
Okay, so first off, it is a bowling alley that they do not put any oil on the lane ever, and people just beat it up. There is no. Moving on. All right. So see, I was about to give you logic with emotion, which leads us into our next point, and then we're going to open it up for questions with Cash, Curtis, and Aaron. Melissa, your philosophy is literally what I base every discussion I have on this show and every discussion that I have on social media with, because I think it's important on how you do it. So when it comes to crisis readiness, obviously we're in a state of crisis right now in our country, above and beyond anything that most people any age from 30 to 70 have seen. How do you relate emotions with crisis and logic and all that stuff?
So the challenging aspect of emotion is that you can't beat it with logic. And that's one of my crisis ready rules. You can't beat emotion with logic. Meanwhile, crises are highly emotional situations, whether you're the one managing the crisis and experiencing the crisis, or whether you are a part of the crisis or wronged by the crisis. So if you can't beat emotion with logic, and emotion is highly escalating and deeply, deeply impactful, then how can you communicate in a way where you're actually heard by the people that you need to be heard? And Anthony, I love it because you just say empathy, you communicate with empathy. I break it down into a crisis ready formula where, you guys tell me, it gives you, well, I hope it gives you a little bit more, because how can you communicate with empathy, right? You have to know what empathy is. You have to know how to do that in order to even try to combat that. So I have a crisis ready formula for communicating when you're confronted with high emotional impact. And that is first to validate the emotions of people you are speaking with, right? Whatever that is to validate their emotions. And even if you just think about being in a conflict with somebody that you care about one-on-one, until both people feel heard and validated, you're going to get, I don't like seeing just me.
But you were in the flow. I was like,
you totally just broke it. So until both people actually feel heard and understood and validated, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to continue to clash and oppose each other. So validate the emotions of people, of how they're feeling and what they're feeling. Make them feel heard, help them feel heard. The second thing is to relate to that emotion. So now that you've validated the emotion, now you can say, what matters to you, this big thing that's so important to you, it also matters to us. So now you're relating from the heart. And ultimately what you're doing is if a logic gets clouded by emotion, then in order to reach the logical side of the brain, you have to go in through the heart, because the brain is being blocked by the heart. So validate the emotion, relate to what is emotionally mattering to them. It's not the right English, and then, only then, can you come in with your proof. And here is whatever it is. It might be statistics, it might be promises, it might be an action plan, it might be all of the above. So when Anthony says, you need emotion with empathy, break it down to validate, relate, and then you gain the permission to prove what you're saying and that you mean what you say.
Got it. So this is super important, and I want to start opening it up to you guys. But we have a lot of conversations with people that reach out. I had a conversation last night with Kristen Commander about something that she's going through with her own family, and this is an important technique in terms of what we're going through, because we have so many family members or friends that feel so incredibly different about things that this level of communication. We talked on other episodes about why to not necessarily, even if you feel like all lives matter as a thing, if you want to not have a fight, if you want to be in unison with people, it's not worth it, because you're trying to meet a logical statement against something that people have emotion with, and it's not makes it wrong. It just makes it a different place. So, Aaron, you got any good conversational questions for Melissa?
So validate, relate, and then you can go into whatever your statement is. Is that a strategy that works all the time, or is there a contingency for that?
That's a good question. No, that's a good question, because you can't guarantee that people are going to feel heard. But it's a really, really solid place to start. And actually, Anthony, as you were just talking, I was thinking about, even in order to validate, you have to first listen. you have to approach the conversation with an open mind, an open heart, open ears, and a closed mouth to actually listen so that you know what you are validating, right? You can understand the deeper context of why somebody feels the way that they feel. And that's a big piece of, my favorite word is why. I ask why until there's no more whys to answer. And then, only then, will I even start to think about the how. And I find that that's such a superpower that goes, too many leaders, too many people don't just silence their minds, close their mouths, listen to understand the context and the why, and then take this approach.
Got it.
Start. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Would you look at that? Speaking of that, before we move over to Cash, there's some people that have questions. Aaron, is that a hat or is that turn straight ahead? Is that an afro or a hat? Okay. All right.
It's a hat fro.
It's a hat fro. If in that angle, it looks like he has a halo of some kind or potentially might be an afro. No, you can keep the hat on, Pharrell. You're good. You're just fine. All right, Cash, go ahead.
No, I think that that's dope because that's essentially what I try to do, except, I go back, like I like to have healthy conversation and I like to try to understand people when they talk and make them, I want them to feel like they're understood and all of that. But at the same time, when I feel like it's air, I like to let it not be known that it's air. Like today I made a video talking about compromise. And that's kind of like what you're saying right there is you got to it's compromise. It'll be beneficial if I listen to you and allow you to voice what you want to voice. And I listen and I receive what you say without, making you feel like it's nothing, basically. Right.
You don't have to agree with it. I think just go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think that giving the space for it takes you leaps and bounds. You don't have to agree with it. Compromise to me is a decision and it's an action. Listening and helping somebody feel valid and validated, I think, is humanity versus it doesn't have to be a compromise.
No, you're right. I just think it would depend on what is being validated. Is what I'm basically getting at. You know what I mean?
How they feel.
I'm sorry?
How they feel. We're not saying that they're right. You don't have to agree with them. But what I'm saying is that you can turn around and walk away and say, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't want to understand them. I don't want to hear them. They're not going to hear me. This is pointless.
Right.
I spend my energy elsewhere. And that's often a valid, really logical thing to do. But if you do want to go past that, then it's more about just people want to feel heard. They want to be seen and they want to be understood. And you don't have to say you're right, but you can say, I understand where you're coming from. Or that sucks what you're going through. I get that. Like that.
No, I get it.
But that's not.
I get what you're saying. I agree with you on that. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I just, I guess I kind of misheard what you first said initially. Like when you said about the All Lives Matter thing, Anthony. You know what I mean? Like I'll go. I'll go back and forth with somebody, but I'll understand. Like you see, I talk to people all the time. I love talking to people. I love listening to them. I love hearing their point of view. That's the only way you gain understanding is if you listen to someone and feel where they're coming from. But I just typically myself, I don't end it with, I understand where you're coming from. It's more like, hey, this is what I think.
The All Lives Matter angle or perception is they're not listening. They're the one, and I shouldn't say they, but people who have that misunderstanding is because they haven't taken the time, it's my perspective, to listen to the other side and do their role in listening, closing their mouth, opening their minds, and understanding something to have deeper context, and then to make a more educated, hopefully, decision.
So, Melissa, because now I think let's do a little All Lives Matter conversation. Real quick, though, do you happen to have headphones out of curiosity?
Yes.
Yeah, can you try to put those on? I got a little echo and some people are noticing it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble.
Yep. Let's see if this sounds any better. How do you sound now? Ooh, that's better.
Loud in my head. Good, yeah.
It's still a little echoey. All right.
She's got to switch it over in the program first.
Go to Cam Mic on the bottom. It'll say Cam Mic. Click on that, and then go to audio. And then where it says audio, do the mic setting and switch it over to those headphones. See if that helps at all. Because if we're going to get into all lives matter, I want to make sure that there's not a big echo.
Do you hear me better now? Default. Pretty ladies AirPods.
I think that's better. Pretty ladies AirPods. And then we'll go to Curtis. But so the all lives matter is interesting that you say that. So Cash, and I do think there is a difference. So I'm going to lead into this. Cash is actually in all lives. He likes to say all lives matter. However, I think there is a difference, and this is when people say I ignore race. Sometimes you have to acknowledge it. From my perspective, and having these conversations with the people that are in this group, if I, as a white man, go up and say, shush, all lives matter, or even just say, I believe all lives matter, it is a divisive statement because of the way that it leans, in my opinion. Cash, I do believe, can get away with saying something differently, just like we all can. We could say different things based on our skin because of our backgrounds, and we're allowed to say different things. And I encourage, of course, Curtis and Aaron to follow into that. But Cash is a believer, and one of his first posts talked about, screw this Black Lives Matter stuff, all lives matter, and there's more to it. So then it becomes an issue of, from a crisis perspective, is there how do you feel about the way that I just posed that with white and black being able to say different things in a moment of crisis?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay, let's rephrase in a moment of crisis, in a moment of discussing racial inequity, systemic racial inequity. Yeah, I mean, I think that as a white person, I don't get it. I get to observe, I get to try to understand and try to even imagine what I can't imagine. And so therefore I don't get a voice. It's not my time to have a voice. It's my time to look and say, what's the deeper context? What's the whys of what's going on, and how can I help, and how can my institute help to fix it? I get to say that. I get to understand or try to understand, and I get to have that voice. But I don't get a say, because I'm not the one who has lived subjective to inequity and injustice and racism my entire life. I haven't. So
Curtis, Curtis or Aaron, when you hear Cash that obviously is more on the side of all lives matter, how does that resonate to you? Is it different than if, say, somebody that looked like me, talked like me, would be like, bro, all lives matter? Or is it different when Cash says it?
I think it's fascinating, and I want to talk to you more about it.
Curtis, what do you think on that one?
Well, I mean, I look at it as, is my mic better?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. I look at it as, depending on who the person is in their context of where they're coming from, if they had an understanding of me or what I've been through or something, I feel like if they, Cash saying all lives matter, right? He has a reasoning why he says all lives matter. He believes why he says all lives matter. But at the end of the day, he does things to make sure that he's doing things to make sure all lives matter. And as a black person, when I hear people say Black Lives Matter, opposite of the actual corporation, I look at it as, I feel it's a feeling that's kind of funny, because at first, like, I don't really feel anything with all lives or Black lives. But seeing when I have some people, genuinely mean it when they're saying, well, I'm not black, but Curtis, Black lives do matter to me, and I'm going to do something, in my power to make sure whatever I have my, attention on, to make sure that, I can make it better for Black people in a way that I know that, against systemic racism, what things have happened, not in a way of guilt of like, ooh, I feel so bad. Let me help you. I don't want your handout, right? I don't want you to feel bad for me enough to help me, but I would like for you to understand that there isn't an inequality, not to baby me, but to say, hey, I just want to make sure other Black people, get the same opportunity as others to be able to, to be able to go after it, work hard and succeed, right? And that's how I look at it.
Before I go back to Cash, and I know a lot of people are commenting on the side with not having a say, and this goes actually back to what Melissa said before we go over to Cash. I'm not saying you don't have a right to say all lives matter. I'm saying that you have to know. A lot of people ask us the question. They come to us in these groups and say, how do we come together when people don't hear us and they don't listen to us? One of those ways is avoiding trigger comments. And I'm not saying you're not allowed to say, if you fully believe all lives matter, that's completely fine. If you were to be honest, how I feel, I of course feel that all lives matter. I would love to say that in a non-divisive way, but I know that my bigger goal is from a perspective of uniting people is to say, I can trade some things, and that's how I feel. So it's not to say that you don't have a say to say that. It's to say you have to know what your points are. Just like Cash talked about walking away. Like, do you want to walk away? Go ahead, walk away. But that's up to you. You just have to know if your goal is to avoid a fight and to try to listen to people, those words aren't going to do it. From somebody that looks like me or some of our followers. Cash, go ahead.
But really quick. Sorry, Cash, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Curtis, go ahead.
I love how he's just like, go ahead.
Curtis, go ahead.
I will say at the end of the day, like for me, when I see you, Aaron, when a lot of people say Black Lives Matter or all lives matter, and I said this in the beginning, I'm like, if you say all lives matter or Black Lives Matter, I don't need to hear you tell me that. Just go live that life. And a lot of people get caught up on just, I want to be able to say this, or I want them to say this, or I want to say this. And to me, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you're saying if your actions aren't backing it up. If you're saying all lives matter, but you're not doing anything to help Black people, then really do all lives matter? If you're saying Black Lives Matter and you're not really doing anything to help Black people or in general, right? And even if you say all lives and it's like, Asian people, Latin people, are you going to attack everything, or what are you going to do? It really, to me, it doesn't matter if you're saying all lives or Black lives. Just go help a life, because we start putting value on different lives. And I feel like even with pandemic, and I had people say, well, Curtis, these are just numbers. The numbers are low. I'm like, that's a life. That's a life that is gone. Doesn't matter if they got killed by the cops or killed by COVID. That is a life. And when you don't look at lives like that, we throw stats out, we throw this, and we try to minimize it, because I feel like people try to pull themselves away from that humanity of that feeling. And I know I've done that before, and that's just myself, that I get to the point where I'm like, I don't care if you're saying all lives or Black lives. I just want you to save a life and go at it that way. And I think sometimes people get caught up in wanting to be able to say, I want to say this because it's my right, or I want you to say it this way. And I'm like, why? Just go save a life, go help a life. And that's where I come at it from. And
Doi said that on the side, kind of regarding Cash, talking about, Cash says all lives matter, but then she said he has a problem with people saying, let's help Blacks. And that
I was reading that. I was about to hit that right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I don't think that's your sentiment. So go ahead.
Okay. So first, I got a couple things I'm going to say. Look, I don't know where you got that from, but I help everybody. I don't care if you're Black, white, blue, giraffe. I don't care. I want to help. That's just me. I don't have a problem with helping Black people. I just don't think that it should be only focused on Black people. And the reason why I get upset when people say, in response to me saying all lives matter, they say, no, Black lives matter. No life can't matter till Black lives matter. That to me, that's like me saying, well, I'll argue back and say, well, if all lives don't matter, then Black lives can't matter, because it's all inclusive. That's the whole thing. All lives matter is all inclusive. And the reason why I say that, because people will turn around and say, well, you don't understand the Black struggle. No, fool, I do, because I am the Black struggle. I live in the Black struggle. I was born in the Black struggle. That's just where I'm from. So the reason why I say that is because where I'm from, it ain't just Black people. And when you say all lives matter or Black lives matter, you make it seem like Black people are held down more than the class of people that are held down. It's not a color thing. It's a class thing. It's a rich thing and a poor thing. It has nothing to do with color. And people want to put the microscope on and say, oh, Black lives matter. Why? Why do Black lives matter any more than anybody else's life? Oh, well, because they were enslaved for 400 years. I ain't never been no damn slave. I never will be a slave. You can't, I don't know nothing about that. And it's not affecting today. That is not affecting today. Only way it's affecting somebody is in the mind, because they study it and get angry about it and they think that we're still there. We are not there no more. Black people are not getting gunned down by the police at an alarming rate. More white people get killed by the police. Let's be real about it. You know what I'm saying? The reason I get mad about people saying Black Lives Matter where I'm from is because where I'm from, Black lives are the ones that's killing Black people. It ain't the police. So that's why I don't agree with the statement of Black Lives Matter. And I think it's a bunch of bullshit, if you ask me. Sorry for my language. All lives matter. And I'm going to stand on that until forever, because where I'm from, it's not just, I've had shootouts. You know what I'm saying? I've had shootouts with other Black people and Latin people with a white boy next to me by my side. You feel me? He's from the same struggle as me. His mama ain't have no food. He didn't have a dad growing up. His mom was a drug addict. My mom was, you know what I'm saying? We come from the same exact struggle. So why should my life matter any more than his just because he's not Black? But he was raised what you would call Black. That's why you say Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? Because you feel like, oh, we are so beat down and we're so oppressed and we don't have the same advantages. This dude don't got the same advantages where I'm from. Go to Chicago right now. You'll see a whole multitude. Latin kings have Black, white, Puerto Rican, and Latin. Maybe a couple Chinese, depending on where you're at. You go to Chicago, you'll see white GDs, Mexican GDs, Black GDs. We're all inclusive. Where I'm from, in the hood, we don't see color in the hood. That's not a real thing. It's a class thing. If you down for my life, I'm down for your life. I got your back. I'll die for you. You'll die for me. Okay, we rocking together. That's how it goes. But then they put this whole, and the only reason they do this whole Black Lives, and another thing that pisses me off about Black Lives Matter, they'll only come out when it's got to do with race. So when I say all lives matter, it's because I'm trying to end that division, and that you make my mom feel unwelcome when you say Black Lives Matter. And she says, well, what about my life? Well, your life can't matter until my life matters. No.
So Cash, I want to have a direct question for you right now, because our message together that you and I talk about all the time, I see your perspective. My perspective is similar but different, because I truly believe there is a reason why somebody like me should not say that. In terms of the greater picture of trying to create unity.
Wait, I'm sorry. I noticed your show. I'm not trying to cut you off on your own show. But
You're
right
good.
Before you get to saying that, that's another reason why I don't like the Black Lives Matter thing. Look at how it makes you feel like, oh, I can't say that, because why the hell not? You're an American. You got the same rights I got. Freedom of speech. You should be able to voice your opinion however the hell you want to voice it. If you want to come off as a racist, you should be able to come off as a racist. If you want to come off as a humanitarian, you should be able to come off as a humanitarian. You want to come off as a Black Panther, you should be able to come off as a Black Panther. It don't matter. This is a country based on freedom, rights of freedom, to be able to express your religion, freedomly protest, freedom speak, all of that. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
That's bullshit. I don't agree with it. It's un-American.
No, I completely agree with you. However, with that said, it's not that I'm saying that I cannot say it. I'm just saying, based on what my goals are, I don't think it aligns with what my goals are to bring people together. So I completely agree with what you're saying. I should have the right. I should have the right to say it. But knowing that my words have cause and effect is why I think that it might play a different role. I truly believe I have the freedom to say it. Aaron, I know you had your hand up, and then I see Melissa's mouth about to talk too. So.
Do you want to be aligned? Would you want to be aligned with somebody who looks at you and says your life can't matter until mine?
Yes, because I want to be
evil thing that I was talking about. Like,
I get it, but I want to be able to change them, not change their opinions, but change their viewpoint of people like me.
I do too. But when you can't, I don't want to be aligned with you. That's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do what I typically do and tie it all together here. To bring it back to Melissa and what Melissa said about the why. What is our why? On this show in particular, our why is for us to move towards unity, towards unifying people. There will always be a divisiveness when things like all lives matter and Black Lives Matter come up. There will always be that divisiveness because people like to pick a side and they like to fight for a side. Even if we're trying to fight for the same exact thing. We could be having an argument. I could be arguing one side, Cash could be arguing the other side, and we could be arguing the same exact thing if we're not listening to each other. So I sent this to Curtis and Anthony a while ago in a book that I was reading, and it talked about a telescope versus a microscope. You can't do everything with a telescope. You can't do everything with a microscope. You have to be able to have the telescope to have that wide vision of what we want, which is unity and being able to have open conversations about things. But you can't get into the details of it without a microscope. And if you don't start a conversation in the means of what Melissa was talking about with listening to someone and validating what they're saying and relating to what they're saying, and then going into your points, you're not going to get there. You have to have the telescope. You have to have the vision of what we're about to talk about. And then that's the all lives matter. And then you can have the microscope, which is focus on the Black community, which is struggling right now, which is why you have Black Lives Matter. When it becomes something so significant that it's this battle between the two, it's just a battle and we're talking about nonsense. We're spinning our wheels and we're not moving forward. And that's what a lot of people I don't think understand, is that when we keep going back and forth with all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, when you keep going back and forth with that, you're going in this direction instead of that direction.
Yeah, Cash, before you go, I want to directly respond to that real quick, because I see it actually relates a little bit to what people are saying, and I agree with what you're saying, Aaron, because it looks like this. When we talk, I'm not monitoring myself. I'm not changing myself by not saying all lives matter. And I also think that Cash should 100% be able to say all lives matter. But for me, my directive is lost because I feel the internal intrinsic need to banter back with somebody saying Black Lives Matter and saying all lives matter, because that misses if my overall point for me is greater than that. And it's not like Cash just walks up to people saying, yo, all lives matter. Yo, all lives matter. It's not the way he does things, but the way that we have the conversation. It's important for me to realize that if I have a purpose that I feel I want to get across to somebody, which is different, I know that could be a conversation ender, so it's not worth it. So telescope or microscope, that's me looking at it as a telescope, because to me, it distracts from my overall purpose. It's not like I'm changing or muting myself. That's all that I'm saying, because I feel as though that I know that I'm going to lose people on that conversation. Before we go to you, Cash, I know you're itching. Melissa goes, wait.
Two things. Yes, I would like to talk. One, what you're talking about, Anthony, is strategic communications. You're being strategic with your approach and communication for the end purpose with the telescope. Aaron, I completely agree with everything that you said. And I think ultimately, so I think my brain works in a few ways, but one of them I see kind of systemically what the crisis is, where the problem is, right? The why, and then how do you rebuild and fix it from there. Two things to kind of add to what you're saying, or to complement what you're saying, because I really fully agree with you. This country, one of the ultimate crises of this country right now is the divisiveness. And that is fed to Americans. Just being fed divisiveness and polarization. And in addition to that, emotion clouds judgment. And when you talk to Americans, and I'm speaking as a Canadian, I'm speaking as somebody who travels the world and who has been in several different cultures and who lives in this country. There's Americans culturally are so emotionally ingrained with their politics, with their amendment rights, so when you breach any of these subjects, they're instant trigger for emotional escalation. And on top of that, the media, our leaders are divisive. They just spew divisiveness. And adding all of this together, over decades and generations, we have the ultimate crisis right now that makes it so challenging, so almost just so frustrating to even try to get to the why and because we can understand the why, but then how do you rebuild from that when emotion is clouding judgment? And all of these topics are so emotionally ingrained into everybody's identity, uniquely identity. So when you challenge one, you're challenging somebody's very identity. So that's just kind of to add just the magnificence of the problem. So I agree with everything you guys are saying, and I think that it's fascinating. I love listening to you talk. And then my brain is going to, what is the problem? How do we crisis ready against this? How do we fix this? And ultimately, we got a few decades ahead of us, but we have to do it, and we have to start now. And Cash, when your daughter came on earlier and said it's up to us, we have the responsibility to make this world a better place. Hell yeah, we do. And it's in having conversations like this, and hopefully having the people who listen and tune in and are open.
I agree.
To start,
Totally agree.
Conversation is a starting point. We need to also act.
100%. Cash, go ahead and talk for me real quick because you're a little fuzzy right now. I want to make sure that you're still clear.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You sound fine. You look a little bit like Elizabeth Taylor. It's fine.
It's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Let it be fuzzy. I just need my voice to be heard. Can you go ahead and pull up Thoy Lynn? The comment that she made says Cash. She said, Cash, I understand that, but sometimes use specific focus points. Why put someone down when they are trying to do something positive for the community? Okay, first off, look, I don't know what your deal is with me today. I love you. I'm not against you. All right, let me go ahead and say that. But now I feel like you're just coming at me. So now I'm gonna go ahead and speak. So I don't know what you're watching or where you're getting that I'm putting someone down for doing something positive in their community, because I don't do that. If you're talking about me speaking out against Black Lives Matter for what they're doing in their community, but burning it down, talking about that, burning shit down, because that's all I've seen Black Lives Matter do when they protest. Some of them, not all of them, some of them were peaceful protests, and I love them. They're good American people, and I stand with them, and I would listen to them all day. I would love to talk with them. It'd be great. I have. Matter of fact, I have at the protest. I've done that. But that's what I feel like you're referring to, because I haven't spoke out against somebody doing nothing positive for the community. I try to do something positive for the community. So don't know what you're talking about there. Secondly, excuse me, I need something to drink. Secondly, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, I gotta reiterate this. I am not against the people that say Black Lives Matter. I'm not against the people. I'm against the people that stand for the organization side of Black Lives Matter. Let me just clarify that. I got a lot of friends. You know, that sounds funny. I got a lot of friends that are Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? But I do. I got a lot of friends that are for Black Lives Matter, and that's totally cool. On my show, Some of Our Parts, she is Gabby. She supports Black Lives Matter, and I love her to death. She's amazing. She can have a conversation, and she doesn't believe in robbing and looting and burning stuff either. Okay? But I have a real big problem with people who say Black Lives Matter, first off, and don't do nothing to help Black lives, number one. Number two, I got a problem with Black Lives Matter when they don't condemn destruction of a city, okay? Because I ain't heard not one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter come out and say, yo, this is not what we about. We don't do this. I haven't heard that. So now when I hear Black Lives Matter, I think my city might get burned down. Now it's offensive to me because of their actions, not because of the phrase. It's because the actions behind the phrase, okay? So now it means something completely different. And you can look at it however you want to look at it. If you want to think that I'm talking down about people that they're trying to do positive in the community, you show me something positive that Black Lives Matter has done in the community since all this whole George Floyd thing, man. You show me that, I'll shut up. I'm talking about the leaders. That's what I'm talking about, okay? I could talk with anyone. Y'all know that. You know I love talking with people. I talk to people all day long, and I'm good at breaking down barriers. That's why we got the show, Breaking the Barriers. Very good at articulating what I want to get across, and I'm very good at comprehending what somebody is saying to me when they speak, okay? But I am not very good at sugarcoating bullshit. If it's bullshit, I'm going to call it bullshit. Black Lives Matter equals bullshit on the organization side. But the people, they have a heart for it. They're real and they're sincere. When they say Black Lives Matter, they probably do feel some type of way. And I'm with them. Them people that are feeling that type of way, I want to understand why. So I can explain why I don't feel that way. And I can ask them the questions like I have with countless other people that were Black Lives Matter or hated the police. I went out in my community. Why do you hate the police? Were they killing people? How do you know that? They say it on the news. How many people do you know personally that have been killed by the police in our city? Oh, well, none. And then you hit them with the fact that, oh, well, it's only been 9, or white people get killed more by police than black people. They'll be like, no, I see it on the news. And that's what I'm trying to say. You have to put facts over feelings, okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat who I am and what I believe just to appease someone's ego. I won't do that because we're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to create a dialogue and create understanding, gain understanding, all right? We're trying to gain understanding on both sides. The only way we can do that is if we deal with the facts and not the feelings. You can feel some type of way, you know what I'm saying? But if it's not accurate, it's not real, then why do you feel it? So ask yourself that. Why are you feeling it?
I want to spin real quick because this is right in Chicago. Emily's backstage, and I'm like, just wait a little bit longer. But Cash, agree with you. Aaron, agree with you. Melissa, agree with you. We all have different elements, and I think ultimately I want to sum it up with what somebody said on the side about the way I was reacting was, and I do think there is a difference between Cash and I. There's a different way to unify based on the way people view you. That's humanity. That's life. Somebody said, Anthony, do you like to walk on eggshells, though? No, I don't like to walk on eggshells at all. But just like any lesson you have and any motivational speaker is going to give you, or any lesson known in life, is that progress comes from pain. And I know that based on the way that I react, if I talk the exact same way as Cash, my effectiveness in having a conversation would be half as what it is. It'd be cut in half. It would be not listened to, and it would defeat the purpose. So I do think all of our voices have a very specific way to relate to people. Cash relates because he is so intelligent and he has the upbringing in the background. I can't talk the way as Cash do. Some of you guys on the outside can't just go out there and talk like Cash. You can if you want to. You're allowed to. It's a free country. But if you're
they know how to fight.
If you're the people out there that are asking, how do we make a difference and change our family, change the way people view us? That's the way that you have to do it, is you have to realize that everybody's going to speak different. And sometimes those painful ass eggshells are the way that you have to relate to other people. So I'm a little bit more tactful, as Melanie just said, because I have to be. And then, yes, Curtis, we have to get Chicago. Emily backstage right now. She's probably going to go to the bathroom.
I literally just have one stat for a lot of people. Because Anthony knows me, I'm always like looking up the extra, like, what's the latest stats?
Yeah.
According to Statista, very credible, not CNN or Fox News, rate of fatal police shootings in the United States from 2015 to July 2020 by ethnicity. This is the rate. All right, so not numbers, because you look at the rate and how we look at the stat. 31 people per million is the highest of fatal police shootings in America. What ethnicity is that?
Black.
Yes. Now, what do you think the white race is?
Yeah, much
You're
smaller.
they're going by percentage though, man. I'm talking about actual people.
Well, what you have to look at it, right? When you look at race, when you look at people, right? People groups, you look at the amount of people, you look at the rate. This is not excusing any of the killings. All right, unless it was, again, if a police officer is getting shot at, I want the police officer to live because he's just doing this job. Yeah. Unless it's a bad police officer that you've encountered, Cash, or some others encountered that were the opposite. But I'm just saying, so people have a full view of the entire stats, because we have a lot of stats come out there. I just like people to know the entire stats, though, bro. The rate is higher because, and this is the thing, it shouldn't be higher rate. Right? If it was all the same, white people still would die more. It would still be more white people dying.
Yeah, it would. If you say their names, you'd have 5 black people, 50 white people. But per capita, 25%, right. 2%.
Well, I can actually tell you, because I know exactly what statistic you're looking at. And then we have to talk about Chicago real fast, and we're only going to have 10 minutes to do it. That statistic is involving armed shootings, which then creates a bigger conversation. The bigger conversation that is the fact that there is more guns in inner city communities, and I think per capita is always the most important statistic. There is more illegal firearms, whatever. There's more crime in general, so that creates more of that violence. Where the police, because again, those are armed, those are people that were shooting also at the police officers. So it goes both ways. At the same time, that is a drastic statistic. But we're also still talking about, what was the number one more time, Curtis?
Well, that's 31 per million for black people. 31 per million. And 4 per million. But the recent stat for this year, 84 white people have been killed but fatal shootings.
Yep.
Let me just make sure I got it right. Where we at? Nope, sorry. I just want to make sure I say it correctly.
Get your stats together, Karen.
I wanted to say correctly. I'm
trying to be as clear as possible.
I'm talking unarmed.
215 white people have been killed this year. Fatal shooting. And again, I'm not using these stats to denigrate anybody's life. Every life matters. 215. I mean, 215 white to 111 black. So it's much closer than we think of what's going on without the disparity of how many people in America there are of white, black, Hispanic. And again, not going away from Hispanic and Asian because Hispanics are dying just as high.
Right, 100%. And I think the general concept, and we're going to end it right here, last part about it, and then we're talking about Chicago, is the fact that we're looking at numbers that are still so ridiculously small in a large group. And yes, as a percentage, black people are killed more. But literally, you're naming a whole year, and that sums up one city black on black crime for the year, which
exactly.
I think that we put so much emphasis on numbers, then we choose not to in certain ways, and then we choose. It's iffy. Chicago, real fast. Let's do this because I want to have
Black Lives Matter in the hood.
So here's actually we're gonna talk about Black Lives Matter because Black Lives Matter has put out a public statement about Chicago saying that they condoned the rioting and the looting that happened there because of whatever happened. So to give I'm shocker, right? So they
my goodness.
Oh my goodness. And I thought somebody did a typo. I was
Corporation.
The corporation, which to me is such an issue that you have to differentiate one same phrase between corporation and company. Another great crisis question on that one. How do you build your brand back up when your brand is the thing that's destroying the gosh damn phrase? With that said, coming back to it, as you guys all know, Cash went ballistic the other day thinking that a 15-year-old was killed in the hood by a police officer for no apparent reason. Turns out, completely false story. Right around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon that happened. I read an article written by a news publication that has since disappeared saying the 15-year-old's mother was so upset. He never had a gun. He never was that kind of person. There was no such person, mother, whatever. It was a 20-year-old that was shooting at a police officer with a previous record that actually shot at them during a dispute and then got shot in the stomach and completely is surviving right now in the hospital. There was a false narrative pushed by the media, by apparently people in the hood that Cash even knew about. There was a 15-year-old girl that got grazed in the face by a bullet as I think part of the same situation. Nobody was dead. No cop didn't do his job correctly, and somebody was shooting at a police officer. And that was what the riots in Chicago were based off of, was thinking that there was a 15-year-old that was dead by the hands of a police officer innocently, which that could be debatable if he shot at a cop in the first place. It's still a 15-year-old, but fact is he shot at a police officer. So all of these riots that caused now $60 million in damage in downtown Chicago, which I am a firm believer that Black Lives Matter, although they didn't say they did anything with, I believe as though there's no way, and Curtis and I kind of texted about this, a coordinated attack on a city like that happened all at once from all these sources that I watched, that I saw happening all over the city at the same time, knowing that they're going to overwhelm the police department, is a targeted attack, plain and simple. No way else to look at it. Now, I don't think the people that were looting knew that they were part of a targeted attack, but when there is that kind of level of communication, like, hey, 10 p.m., let's destroy a city, there's something wrong. So with all that said, that's what happened in Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot, and I put a post yesterday on Facebook, Mayor Lightfoot could have simply said something, and I'm going to, since Melissa is our guest, I want her to talk about this because we talked about the idea of crisis. So as a city, if you are running a city, Mayor Lightfoot could have literally made a statement at 8 p.m. and said the story that's being passed along right now is incorrect. And then hopefully these $60 million in damage to riots wouldn't happen. People wouldn't have not been able to go to work the next day. So Melissa, from a crisis perspective, how would you deal with something like that as a leader of a city? And why is that such a problem? Is that a problem, Melissa?
It's really complex. So for people listening, watching, I sit on the International Association of Chiefs of Police. I'm a part of that association, and I sit on their Police Professional Standards, Ethics, and Image Committee, and very active. And a couple things. One, within 15 minutes, the message was out and the mob was summoned, and the looting began. Okay, so there's so many different angles here. So from a law enforcement standpoint, they're not like, that's 15 minutes from 0 to 1,000 with $66 million of damage on the back end of that, is while they're dealing with their own internal investigation of fact finding and confirming facts and all of that. There's a lot that's happening, right? And to your guys' point, there's more to it on the front end of bringing these people in, and do people know what they were actually a part of, and what triggered that, and how did that. So Anthony, if Mayor Lightfoot would have come out and said something, or if the chief of police would have come out and said something, and I want to say something about PIOs after, would they have even listened? Right? So it's so much deeper than, I don't know that they would have. I don't even know that if they validated, related, like, it's so far, goes to our previous conversation. It's so far beyond a breaking point right now. It's so complex. I can't answer in just like a few sentences, and I can't say what I would do because there's so many angles and so many dynamics. What I can say is that defunding the police and different reforms are being spoken about, and PIOs, so public information officers, are being considered now in Seattle and other places to remove that job description. And so for those who don't know, public information officer is the public facing face and voice, the connection, the bridge between community and law enforcement. Oftentimes, sometimes they're law enforcement background people, other times they're civilians that join forces with law enforcement too. And in crisis, they are the communication. It just brings me back, just because the committee that I sit on, we're looking at how do we protect those jobs, because they're so instrumental in that, creating that bridge.
But
and having that
specifically on this topic, somebody like him, somebody like that role could have helped it.
Needed to, absolutely needed to, but it's so much beyond that. In the sense, okay, so look at timing. Look at the fact that it could have potentially not been anticipated to the extent that it was, right? From a standpoint of the logic, when you know that the facts are not true, sometimes it's really difficult to understand that. There's another ready formula for it, but to understand that emotional escalation is going to happen, and how big and bad that's going to be, how bad the impact is going to be.
So how important is getting ahead of it fast?
It's critical. It's critical. So I have something called the crisis response penalty. Crisis response penalty is the longer you take to effectively respond to any type of crisis, and response is action and communication. Effective action and communication happen simultaneously. The longer you take from the point of an incident to the time you actually effectively respond, that crisis response penalty drastically increases. So absolutely, it's essential and critical. But if they don't already have that trust with their communities, that's more my point, that no matter what, and they don't, if they didn't have it, if they don't have it, no matter what they say, would it have prevented it, is my bigger question.
Got it. So that is a good question. So we got 3 minutes left on this topic. I want Cash, go ahead, because I know, and actually think about it like this. Cash reacted the exact same way as the media and all that stuff, which is why I kind of look at it as like, was this all a targeted plan? Like, somebody got shot by the police. This is a way to spread misinformation and then all of a sudden use it to tear down a city. And as Melissa said, if we don't know if they would have listened to the mayor, if they would have listened to the liaison, but at least they would have done something, because this way they just went, well, catch you later. Cash, go ahead.
So here's the thing. The news were actually out there. If you watch the video that I had shared, I took down now, they were out there. And then they made an article and they didn't release any details. They were like, oh, we heard that there was this, and that. We don't have any details right now, but they got the man in custody. All right. That's what they said. He's in critical condition at the hospital. All right. The mayor instantly, like you said, action and response, or how'd you say it? Response and action
and communication.
Yeah.
Equals response.
Action and communication. There you go. She didn't do none of that. She did no action and no response or communication because she wanted the response that she got. She wants that city to, I'm telling you, that mayor got some kind of corrupt agenda going on, man. And as far as this is not a fact, it's my opinion, but I think that mayor is corrupt. I think that she's been bought off or something's going on with her, because She does not seem like she cares at all for the city. She didn't stand up for the police when the police was catching crap. You know what I'm saying? When they were getting hit with bricks. Now, I know Chicago got some hard cops out there, some hard police officers. They got a lot of good officers out there too. But she didn't stand up for them at all. She didn't say, yo, that's not cool, y'all throwing bricks at the police. That's not cool that y'all, yo, don't tear up the city. Don't. No, she was cool with it. She let it all ride. And anytime something happens out there, she don't address nothing. She don't try to do no type of damage control. It's like she's for the chaos. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it as a teachable moment, because think of how emotional you are about her right now. And then think about if somebody went up to you who is a supporter of hers, hearing how upset that she has just made you, and then goes up to you right now and says, yes, but look at these legislations that she's passed that are positive. It doesn't matter in this moment because you're effing pissed off. So just think.
No, I would listen. If I read the legislation, I'd be like, damn, this is crazy because she ain't showing none of this in action.
Yeah, well, that's
communication and action. You know what I'm saying? So she's taking the action, but she's not communicating it. Communicate the legislation, and then I wouldn't have the response.
Well, I was kidding, because she really hasn't done anything good legislation-wise for Chicago. But Aaron, do you have anything to say on this, or can Emily, who's waiting backstage, are we ready to shift gears and bid adieu to Melissa?
No, yeah, I'm definitely just a quick touching point. I mean,
well, guess we're moving on. All right, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's tough to continue to see stuff like that and the leaders not stepping up. And I think that's the biggest situation that we're in right now, is that we don't have leaders to look at.
Yeah.
And I feel like the nature of society now, with how instantaneous things are, people want the answers to what's going on. What's going on with coronavirus? What's going on with Black Lives Matter? What's going on with the things in Chicago? What happened in this situation? Did this person get shot or did they not get shot? Everyone wants these answers so quickly. And the problem that I'm seeing, which shouldn't be a problem, but is people are afraid to respond in some way or the other. If they respond quickly, then they said something too quickly about it. Why didn't you wait for more information? If someone waits for the information to give the correct information, well, why aren't you saying something? Why are you being silent about it? And it's going to come from both sides, and you have to realize that. I mean, I'm not a politician, but I feel like that's being a politician. You have to make those tough decisions about what you're going to do. But like Cash was saying, someone has to say something from a leadership position. Whether it's all the details or not, they have to say something, because people are looking at you and they put you in that position so that they can have someone to rely on. Whether your parents tell you something is right or something is wrong or whatever it is, they still should be saying something to you, because they're being looked at. You're being looked at. And that's just, it's just so frustrating in this situation with the leadership. And I feel like there was something that I saw the other day, that you don't have to be in a leadership position to be a leader. And I just encourage everyone, and again, this is what the show is about. I encourage everyone to try and be their own leader. But when you're being a leader, make sure that you're justifying and you're explaining your decisions. Otherwise, people are going to make up their own decisions.
Absolutely. Great comment. Yeah. We're going to go. Melissa, I'm going to have you wrap up, and I know you've got a couple other things to say. There's one thing.
Well, in the back end of Aaron.
You there? You got it? So yeah, go ahead. And I know it's directly related to Aaron. Ultimately, there's other topics that people are asking about in terms of why are they letting cities go to hell? We could talk about that maybe at the end of the show, but there could be greater purposes to that. Melissa, go ahead and
definitely
respond to Aaron, and then go ahead and bid everybody to do, and we'll say thank you at that point too. But go ahead.
Sounds good. Okay, two things, Aaron. You hit two things that I kind of just want to expand upon. First is, I don't know what you said, but I wrote it down. Trust before, not as in don't trust before, but as in build trust before. So right now, to the point of, if anybody would have come out in Chicago and said something, would it have been heard? Would people have listened? Would it have had any impact? We cannot wait for a crisis to strike to build the trust. The trust is what you build every single day through your actions and your communications. And what that provides you amongst a whole bunch of things is when a crisis strikes, you get the benefit of the doubt, the earned benefit of the doubt. And when things escalate so quickly, which they do, and are so emotionally triggered and impactful, that benefit of the doubt can make or break everything in terms of impact on results and impact on society and lives, and et cetera. So earn trust before is one thing that, and trust from my perspective as a human being, and I bring this into the work that I do, trust is not an attainable objective, in the sense that trust is something you earn with every single interaction, every single day, every single time. It's never to be taken for granted because it can leave at any second as well. So it is something that is constantly, continuously built upon and never taken for granted. You don't achieve trust. You continue to earn trust. One. Two is the leadership aspect. So one of the things that I've observed coming out of COVID, or throughout COVID, is, and the work that I do. So when COVID struck, my clients were crisis ready, so my clients were good, to the most extent possible. And I had the opportunity to work with government and so law enforcement and the front lines and healthcare providers and institutions. And then through that, I also had the opportunity to empower leaders to be the leaders, because to your point, Aaron, everybody is always searching for a leader, constantly. The leader, and when COVID hit, using COVID as an example, I sit at some really interesting tables globally. Not one person had all the answers. Nobody did. Nobody did. Everybody was fearful because we are human beings and we are emotional beings by nature. So you can't, the fear is inevitable. Discomfort in volatility and uncertainty is extreme for a leader. From a leader standpoint, we saw a lot of fear. We saw a lot of, we don't want to communicate. We don't want to take an affirmative action because tomorrow we might get new information and that means we're going to have to retract from it. And what's that going to make us look like? Meanwhile, today, people need that affirmative action. They need that guidance. And so to your point that every single person, I do this, I teach this to college students, I teach this to leaders across the nation. It's so important, is that we are all leaders. Cash, when your daughter came on today and said it's our responsibility, it's all of our responsibility. And one of the beautiful things from my perspective is that government is screwing it up.
You're right.
And that presents an opportunity. And we've seen it, the trust barometer for decades has been going down with government. There's an opportunity for organizations and for us people to rise as the leader, because the fact is that everybody is craving it. But what we have to do is take that responsibility on. We have to earn the trust. To your point, you have to communicate and all that. And also find ways to gather your facts that are not dependent on the uncertainty or the risk of another form of leadership that you would typically betray, like government, right? That you typically go to. So as an example, in COVID, the government in this country wasn't providing answers, and yet COVID had traveled across the world. We could have had answers had we looked. And the smart organizations that were becoming crisis ready were looking across the world and watching what was happening and taking that into account and saying that inevitably that is going to be us. And if they're not going to help us, then we can at least learn for ourselves. So putting yourself in that mindset that you are the leader and that you do have trust, whether you're a house of worship or religion or a community or an organization, you have people that you lead that look to you, and that presents a very unique and very powerful opportunity to step in and rise to that occasion, because right now, the world needs us to. So on that, that's my last final 2 cents.
Excellent. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to bring Curtis back up. We'll swap you guys. And again, I think your message, and you can say it too, is lead. We are leaders in and of ourselves. So Melissa, thank you so much. I know you're going to go, I think, watch backstage. I know we've gone super long. Emily, I'm so sorry.
Thank you, guys.
You are dope, Melissa, for real. I really enjoyed hearing your perspective, and I wasn't
Thank
you.
you.
I was reading the comments. That's why you see
I didn't feel that. I never feel that.
It wasn't you. You are amazing. I love your mind. It was dope.
She's Canadian. She's always nice. Thank you, Melissa.
I do. I love
Bye,
Canada.
guys. Thank you.
Take it easy. Oh, sorry. What was that? What was last?
That was so rude. You just did that to that lady.
All right, bye guys. Thank you.
All right.
Go bring.
Steal it. All right. Curtis is going to come back up. Yes, Cash.
I'll be right back. I got to use the bathroom. I got to take a leak.
That's classy. Okay. Got it.
Wash
All
your
right.
hands.
All right. All right. So next up, we are going to bring up Emily. Finally, Emily is, she's probably sank into her chair. So I apologize that we are typical as our usual selves, chatty and 20 minutes behind at best.
I wasn't that chatty today.
No, it's okay. We had a good conversation. So before we move on, real quick, tomorrow I'll be doing something on Zoom that I'm going to send everybody an invite to. I'm doing an event. That thing that I got from our friend Curtis.
You got it? I didn't get it.
You got to email faster.
They don't like black people.
No. Anyway, so the cool thing is they're doing a rehearsal tomorrow where you guys can all.
All right.
You can all play a game for like an hour. It's a dress rehearsal. You might not get in my room, but regardless, somebody gets the I'll send you guys out a link. You get a $50 gift card if you actually win. So, and fun fact, and if I bring the most amount of people, then I get a $100 Amazon card, which I'll give back to, of course, Be The Change.
Curtis, black MCs matter, Anthony.
Sorry about that. I can go on a whole comedy rant on how the Zoom call for training went yesterday, because holy God. Anyways, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are excited to have our next guest because this one is going to be another different topic. Today's been a conversation of differences. So with that said, Emily is she's been watching a lot of the stuff that we do. We started talking about a week and a half ago regarding the way we have our conversations and some of the different things we talk about. And I've always liked her message when we met about a year and a half ago. She's an incredibly interesting young woman that is trying to change the way people think about certain things in a very positive manner, including self-empowerment. So she's modern day, what we call empowerment specialist. She's a curve model from Nashville, Tennessee, passionate about helping local communities. She's got a strong belief in education in terms of self-worth and ending human trafficking, which we'll touch on as well. Super upbeat, positive, fun to talk to. I have not actually talking with her live in a while, so I'm excited to do it. So Emily, we're going to bring you up on stage. Emily, welcome to the virtual platform. Did you fall asleep back there?
It was close. No, I'm kidding. You guys.
She's having so much fun. She's sitting upside down to me.
It was intriguing. It was good. It was
all right. Good.
I enjoyed it a lot.
For some odd reason, you're upside down to Curtis, but you're good to us. Emily, Emily, tell us a little bit about what you do, what your profession is, all the above.
Absolutely. So my name is Emily Robbins. I'm 21 years old and I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a curve model. Was not ever an expected trade I thought I would go into. I was raised on a super small farm in rural Tennessee, was literally raised on farm store clothes. I wore my brother's Tommy Hilfiger clothes before they were cool. Definitely was super non-feminine and was literally working at a telephone store. And this woman came up to me. She was my lead and she said, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, to get a paycheck, Susan. Why are you here?" And she said, "Well, no, I want to know what you're doing here because you look like you could actually be a curve model outside of here. I'm a stylist, and would you be interested in me taking you under my wing and teaching you things?" I had never walked in a pair of heels. I had no experience, no understanding of there being inclusion in the industry because we didn't necessarily see that growing up. And it snowballed from there, and it was amazing. So I got into modeling and then came speaking, and I realized that if I wanted to be an effective speaker, I needed the platform to reach the correct people because we all agree we can talk to a crowd, but if they're not the people who need the message, we're just wasting our breath, correct? So that was for me how I figured out how to bridge the gap was through modeling. It was like, I want to talk about talking. Let me get the right narrative and the right crowd to speak with. So that's where I got started.
Got it. I liked Aaron. Aaron was kind of like, well, I mean, we like to talk to people that disagree too. he was kind of bobbing his head up there. And that's kind of the message. And if there's one thing I could pass on to you real quick when you said that is you'd be surprised. Sometimes the people that are going to have the most trouble hearing it just need to hear it a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways. So whatever your message is to those people, never give up. Just realize that it's probably not going to affect them in the moment. So just remember that. So obviously part of the reason I brought you on is with inclusivity. And obviously a curve model was not something that was a thing 20, 30 years ago, maybe about 15, 20 years ago. So and obviously I take it, I'm going to ask the question because I feel like we're in a safe place. So when did it go from plus size model to curve model, and how did that matter, or why does it matter?
For me personally, it doesn't. But I do know a lot of people that, are you asking in reference to rather be called curve model or plus size? Is that what your question was?
I've actually never seen curve model until we started talking again, and it's curve model.
Gotcha.
I've still always heard the other phrase. So in this world of political correctness, is that an issue? Is that like a thing?
I prefer to be called a curve model because regardless of my size, I consider myself to be a healthy person that just has curvature to me a lot more than the average woman does. And I had to stay true to that and just get into the right niche. So for me, I would rather be called a curve model because plus is just, it doesn't seem like the correct term for me. So personally, I prefer to be called a curve model, but there is no political correctness. So you're all good.
So when you talk about, and some of the stuff you talk about with inclusion, obviously that goes for all different things. Females in the industry, that goes for black, white, purple, all that stuff. So when you speak to about inclusion, what's one of the messages that you try to pass on to people as you talk about it?
For sure. So normally I just start with my personal story. And like you said, I'm really big into human trafficking. I had a really hard childhood, experience things that most children should not have to experience, but it's a reality that people go through. And when I got into the curve model industry, it was so funny. I just started going and showing up to events. I was like, I may not be somebody, but they're going to see my face. And eventually they're going to be like, she's been here a few times. Who is this woman? So I was literally going into rooms where girls were 6'2", 6 foot, and they were double zeros, maybe a size 2. And here I am, 5'9", size 14, 16. And I was just like, you know what? I'm busting. It is what it is. And that being said, probably my 6th or 7th event in Nashville, it was the Nashville Fashion Week, and they were giving awards out and they were talking. And I was like, I'm so tired of this. I'm so fed up. Like, I'm not seen. Maybe I'm in the wrong place. Maybe I'm fighting the wrong battle. Maybe I should just go home. And my stylist looked at me and she said, there's somebody I want you to meet before you leave. If you're going to give up, you're going to call it quits, then let me introduce you to this person. And so she walks me through the room, and it's packed to the rim. I mean, Nashville's actually a pretty big model industry because it kind of plateaus down from Atlanta. So I turn and I look, and there's this woman, and she's sitting in a wheelchair. And I go, okay, that's interesting, because here we are, and I'm insecure about myself being a little heavy set in comparison to the other models in the room. And here's this woman sitting in a wheelchair, and she's just confident. She's funny. She's bubbly. She walks up to me. She introduces herself, hands me a card, and says, hey, I want you to walk in my show. I have an organization that I've started called Fashion is for Everybody. And I really like what you represent and the boldness that you carry in the room. And I'm thinking, how freaking hilarious am I to walk into this room and think I don't belong? And here's this woman sitting in this wheelchair, just not letting anything hold her back. And that was kind of a pivotal moment for me in the industry. It was just saying, you know what, if this woman can do it, and this is what inclusion is really about, then I need to stand up and I need to keep moving and make that more known in the industry. And when I got signed with Tribe Talent, I actually met you a year ago, and I remember talking about that on stage, that it was up in the air. I came home and I got signed, and I was one of the first curve models that they ever signed in Nashville. And that was pivotal for me, because it was like, okay, let's pave the way. Let's pave the way. Who cares what anybody thinks? And I think that's kind of regardless of what standpoint, what job that we are in, or what our goals and visions are, is if no one else is doing it, doesn't matter, because it's our passion. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I'm sorry.
No, you did. And it actually spun off a different one. And then I'm going to have Aaron and Curtis jump in. And then I've got the one that you and I talked about that we'll definitely make sure to cover. So I hear stuff and I forget about, and I don't forget, but I remembered your background and what you went through, and obviously being adopted. Are you still family with Dr. Obama?
I'm not.
Okay.
That's
different story.
Another thing.
Different story for a different day. But the stuff that you went through growing up, and I look at certain things, and we talk a lot about this show on things like white privilege, and I've gotten better as I talk to Curtis and Aaron of accepting certain terminologies, because I think it's important to understand certain things like that. I'm going to bring Cash back up real quick. So with all that, I look at it and I say, somebody like you, to me, who went through so much, is where now I protect other people, and I get angry for other people with myself. I'm like, I can deal with things being thrown at me, and I know how open-minded you are, Emily. So when somebody says something to you about privilege, knowing what you've been through and your childhood and everything going on, how do you feel about the terminology, you're white, so you're privileged?
Honestly, most of the time when I share my story, people go, wow, I never would have guessed that because of the way that you carry yourself and the way that you look. And that's a reality for me with not dealing with, that was the wrong word, being a part of white privilege, because it is a real thing. I do believe the color of my skin can definitely benefit me in situations. And I don't know what, who was on earlier? I apologize. What's her name?
Melissa,
how she said she doesn't know how it feels to experience racism. But I have experienced racism. You know, I was a white person that lived in Atlanta in Riverdale, and I couldn't get a job. So I have experienced different types of racism towards me. And when my parents got divorced and we moved out and we went to the halfway house and then they put us in Section 8 housing, I was the only white kid, and I remember just being so insecure in that moment. So I have experienced both sides. And, you know, I did grow up in a super southern area. So to be picked up and planted into the projects and being white and not understanding the background of what it's like to be a black person, reality smacked me in the face. So I feel like I'm very versatile and very educated. And that's one of the things that I feel like has made me passionate in speaking, is I can relate to everyone. And I have scenarios that I've experienced where I can say that's absolutely valid what you're talking about. But also I want to counteract that and explain to you what I experienced was real as well. And how can we change the narrative, and how can we be better? So that's for sure something that I've experienced.
So you're pretty able to deal with those, because again, if I put myself as close to your shoes or your heels as possible, to me, I would get really upset. I would get really, really upset when people, and I get that even on my own story with a father that's disabled. I get upset. And I've gotten better at it to fluff it off because I know there's a bigger picture. But when it comes to you, Emily, my perspective side, like if I heard somebody, my protective side, come up to you and say, oh, you have this good job, you've got a nice car, I don't know what you have. But if they gave you that whole oh, must have been nice, must have been easy, I want to fight. I want to get angry because I know a little bit about your backstory. So again, and not just if I said privilege, but when it comes to even the white privilege discussion, of your background. And I see your face change when I say it. So I'm curious, there's definitely a chemical change in your body when you hear stuff like that. And I know how open and inclusive you are to everyone. How much does that frustrate you? And be honest, if it doesn't frustrate you at all, let us know. But does that frustrate you when you hear that level of discussion about the conversation of all white people have privilege?
Honestly, it does, just because in any narrative, we don't know what anyone is going through at a certain moment. And we don't know anyone's story. We don't know their background. And, you know, with my story and with what happened to me, you know, I started being sexually assaulted when I was 10 years old. And then it pivoted. And then I was a drug addict at 15, an alcoholic. I went to rehab. I had to literally detox from chemical imbalances in my body from doing so many drugs that I was introduced to as a child. And there are so many things that I could argue and say, yeah, I might be white, but you have no idea what I've experienced. And that's true for anyone, regardless of your skin color, where you're from, what demographic, your body size, your structure, your family orientation. Whatever has happened to us, and this is something that I've learned and carried with in order to be a fluid person and have relatable conversations, is what I've experienced is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Just like something that you've experienced is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. In my world, that's the worst thing I've experienced. Just like you growing up and having to go through those experiences with your father, that was real to you. But to someone else, it's like, oh, that wasn't shit. Here's what happened to me because I was a person of color, or because I was raised in the hood, or because of who I was surrounded with. I had an abusive father. There are so many conversations. So I feel like for me, it's just, let me meet you where you are. And that's my goal, is to just be a fluid person and to respect you and say, you know what, here's this, but how can we be inclusive enough to say this happened to you, but how are we going to change the narrative? So I do get like a little defensive about white privilege because I did not experience that at all. But that doesn't mean there aren't people that experience white privilege.
Of course. Well said. Aaron and Curtis, you got anything to ask her before we move on to our next question? And Cash, I know you jumped on too. If there's anything you want to ask right now, please go ahead. Aaron, go ahead. Got anything?
Oh, You threw that on me very quickly.
Curtis, got it. Anybody? No.
Curtis muted.
Oh, I thought you were talking, Aaron.
No.
I was waiting for the tie it all together.
Oh no, we're not
there yet. We're not there yet.
My bad. Dang. Yeah,
No,
I can't see my
Go ahead.
face with the truth to set me free. I got to scoot over here. You know what I'm saying? The truth is on my face. Don't say nothing, Anthony. But yeah, so I enjoy hearing what you're saying, Emily, because I think how you come at it is a way of you're able to take what they say and not to just take it and say, okay, I'll deal with it. But you're able to educate people on other things. Because I really feel like people how do I want to say this? People can't see what other people have gone through beyond what they've gone through. And I know people that, suicide happens all the time. And people wonder why did a rich person kill themselves, but a poor person didn't? Or why did this person do such a thing and this person doesn't? Because this person has it worse. Everybody has it, I think, as worse as they allow themselves to think they have it. Right? Because everything we think of, and everybody's got a different story. But when I got down to Haiti and I was in Cité Soleil, which you can't go through without having the gangs take you around, I've never seen anything like as crazy as that. It gave me a nightmare of seeing what people live in. And then the craziest thing, that night, as we left, I went back up to a mansion on the mountain that I've never been in as big as my life. And it's just funny how you could be so close, but so far apart in how we see things, how we experience things, even in how we were raised with family members in the same family. They have different ideas of how they were raised. And I've seen it in my own. I'm like, oh, I was a middle child. I didn't feel like I got everything I should have got. But, I still worked hard. You can ask my brothers and sisters. Oh, Curtis was a favorite. Just because I didn't get as many spankings because I didn't like to get in trouble because I hate getting disciplined. But again, that's how I look at it. And a lot of times people can only compare and they can't just listen and say, okay, cool. I know what I've been through, and I am confident enough in myself to know that, yes, what you're saying is challenging me, but at the same time, hey, just listen, look what I've been through. And I think that type of conversation is able to break through to people when they get so caught up of, well, you're white, so you got white privilege. Yeah, but you also don't know that I went through this crazy life that you didn't. And so that's something that I think people need to be more like you and just be open to understand that, okay, great, let me listen, not compare, because I think that's where people go wrong. And that goes into Instagram for especially curve model and regular model. Even regular models hate themselves because of the industry of what they do. And people don't understand why these women don't love themselves. And like, you're perfect, you're beautiful. And they don't understand that just because you're quote unquote society's perfect, you still don't love yourself because that's not really what you want to be, or you don't understand your identity. And that's something that, I think is really powerful what you're doing and definitely respect it.
So there's a little, sorry, Emily. There's a little stuff on the side, and I think it's interesting because I had no intention of talking about white privilege with Emily, but I thought it was an interesting topic to bring up. And I'm watching some of the kind of a conversation going on the side between Donna and Mia, and I think it's very interesting to point out because Donna talks about her issue, her life story that's about being homeless, and I think Emily is an example of we don't know just because somebody's color what they went through, and there is levels of white privilege. There is levels of it's more class based, and it's just such a touchy topic, which is why I don't like anybody bringing it up, because it does create, like, how can you tell somebody who's been homeless and had a terrible life, or somebody that's been abused and had those issues growing up, to say the word white privilege is something that you just need to understand. I know that I did not face any privilege, and I say this a lot, but my white privilege allowed me to be able to walk into a bank without getting looked at differently. And we'll also talk about, like, well, there's white people that get that too. However, I use stories from Curtis where I learned this. Curtis talked about him and his lawyer friends and his doctor friends that get pulled over when they're dressed in suits and perfect clothes. So again, what am I trying to say? Is white privilege a thing? Not necessarily. What I'm trying to say is everybody's story is different. Emily's got a different story. Curtis has got a different story. And Curtis also doesn't preach about white privilege, but he does understand that there's little things here and there that have made a difference. We unfortunately do see skin color in this country and in this world. So there's little things, maybe privilege is a tough word to bring because there is nothing that sometimes gives you a heads up or a hand up. So that's kind of where I see on that. Aaron, I had trouble articulating that one, but Aaron, Cash, you got anything to say?
So the first thing that I would say about it is, and this is kind of a discovery collectively here, but when someone says to you, you have white privilege, what is your first response? What is your first reaction that you want to say back? That's a question before I move on.
Talking to me or Emily? Talking to Emily?
Good question.
To either one of you. If someone comes up to you and they say, "Oh, you have white privilege," what is the first thing that comes to your mind that you want to say? How do you want to respond?
White privilege. I've experienced white privilege. I know what it is. I know the basis of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's always been white privilege for me, but I do know when I got out of the depths of what I experienced when I went to go get a job or when I went to do something, I did experience more privilege. I do believe that. I believe that there is points in my life where I've had the upper hand.
I think Aaron wanted your instant response, right? Is that what you want?
Yeah.
My instant response, even though I've learned to monitor it, is internally a big fat F you. That's but I know to monitor it now. But internally, I look at people and I say, really? So like you're driving this car. You've had this job. Things aren't that horrible right now that you have to judge me. But that's how I feel. Do I say it typically?
That is why I say this is a collective thing here, because as we're talking about inclusivity, it is right now, white privilege has been put out there the same way as the word. It's a word that's been put out there that has a negative connotation right now. But if you were to ask someone, well, what is your definition of it? I'm not challenging you. I'm just interested. You say that to me. What is your definition of it? I feel like that leads to a road of, well, this is why I would disagree with you, or this is why maybe you think that, but this is a situation. Again, like I said last week, it becomes this word or this phrase or this saying that people have to make this excuse, I believe, for themselves. So that's why I ask you, what is your knee-jerk, your instant response to it? Because someone's saying to you, you have white privilege, and you validating it by becoming defensive or attacking it or wanting to do that, you're only supporting and giving value to what they want you to do.
Right.
Right.
That makes sense.
Versus diffusing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't know Emily's story. They don't know Cash's story. And
Yeah.
Cash didn't, like, people didn't know who Cash was until he started speaking. And when they heard him start to speak, they were able to relate to him. When they were able to relate to him, they started to follow him and go on the journey with him. But initially, that's not going to happen. People are going to do that. That is in our human nature as animals to try and spot what's going on around us and to make these snap judgments. But that's where not validating, oh, you have this, or you're that, or you were probably like that. Okay, what is making you say that? But that's why I ask the question and I make it a group question about complacency, because I know that going into asking someone, why do you think that, or using the word why or whatever it is, could seem like a challenge or an attack at that person. If that
got it. No, it does. Cash, go ahead, and then I've got a question to pose.
Okay, so before everybody gets to commenting, what I'm about to say, I touched on before in another video, and I'm going to touch on it again, but I'm going to make it to where you can understand it a little easier. Okay, white privilege is a real thing, just as black privilege is a real thing. However, it is not the fault of the white person that has white privilege, and it is not the fault of the black person that has black privilege. It has been used to divide people, because I'm reading in the comments right now, and you see people like, well, I never had white privilege and I was this, and I never had white privilege because I was that. What about this for black privilege? And it causes a divide. That's why it's created, and you don't even realize that you have it, and that's how subtle that it is. Though in instances where you can see white privilege or black privilege, you see black privilege with what was that bill that was passed? Affirmative action, was it?
Affirmative action, yeah.
Oh, affirmative action, where black people got a job because they needed minorities, even when they weren't qualified. That was a form of black privilege. Hold on, real quick. Let me get the start out. I know it was needed. I know that bill was needed because there was a time where it was racism and they weren't hiring people. But what they did is they took that and they said, fine, we'll hire the black people, but we're going to hire the least qualified one. So then the white people will look at him like, why did he get the job just because he was black and he can't even do the job? So they twisted it. So now black privilege is being looked at and like, this dude got the job and he ain't even qualified, where the good brother that was qualified, that would have excelled, didn't get the job still. He still didn't get the job. Now, form of white privilege. White privilege is, let's say that me and Anthony have 0 offenses criminally, and me and him go in front of a judge, the same exact judge for the same exact crime, and the judge throws his case and gives him probation, whereas I get 1 year in jail. I'm gonna be pissed. Like, why didn't see his white? If I was white, I would have got a lesser sentence. Anthony didn't ask for a lighter sentence, even though that was desired. He didn't know that his white privilege was going to kick in. I'm sure he was sweating bricks in front of the judge. But I'm going to be pissed because I'm like, this white dude got this. And then it causes a divide. So they created white privilege and black privilege, not us. We didn't create it down here. We don't create the privilege. None of us do. It's a tool. It's the same. And I'll use this analogy. It's the same way they did back in slavery times with the dark slave, and the light slave. They created white privilege. If you were a light skin, you got special privileges. You got treated better. And they didn't suspect you of anything. You didn't do nothing wrong, but they automatically will suspect the dark slave of doing something wrong. They'll beat him. They won't let him in the house. They won't. You get what I'm saying? And It wasn't that this light skinned slave asked for this. It's just what they did to create the divide. So now these black ones is going to be looking at the light skinned one like, oh, I can't trust him. He ain't good with master. And it's the same tactic that they've been using. So we can't allow that to be a divide. Now, if anything, and you say people want to argue the white privilege and black privilege, what we need to do is come together and say, look, I feel you. It was unfair. I shouldn't have got a better sentence than you. Or you know what? You should have got that job. You know what? That is messed up how they did you. And they understand. And then go against the system and say, look, y'all are making us turn against each other, and point the finger back at them. Get what I'm saying? Because you can't help what people do. You can't help what privilege someone gives you if they deem you worthy of it. It just so happens they use it as a tool to divide. So.
Curtis, you got to reply on that one, because I got to reply to somebody in the comments.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with him, but also just letting people know affirmative action was also for women in all races. So that's not just black privilege. It is, but what Cash is saying is true, because they did use that to say, well, affirmative action got this person a job. And then they use that to empower other people who are white to then say, well, this person got this job because he's black, not because he earned it, which sometimes in Cash, his example is true, but other times there are things where black people earn that job. And I've been told to my face that before. Oh, you only got this because you're black. And I look at them and I go, I am miles better than you. I won't, and I work my butt off. Anthony will tell you. And I said, if I get an opportunity, I go at it. But there is an understanding in marketing and in Hollywood that there are some things that are still there, that are archaic, but people, use that to create a divide. And I had an instance where, and I think I told Anthony and Aaron about it. We're not coming out with it, but there was an instance with a major corporation and a person I know, and This black person had a job. He did his job to the best of his ability while rooting out something that was wrong. He was chastised by a client, and something happened. I
being
really
super vague.
So I'm trying. Just forget it. I can't even go into it yet because it's still some things happening. But anyway, it just happened to where a person that was white said this person got his job because he was black, because he did the right thing, and this person wasn't happy that they suffered a loss for him doing the right thing because they were doing the wrong thing, and he didn't get the justice he needed. And that's something that I've seen before, and that's that divide that happens because people believe that black people are getting jobs they don't earn, and that's not true.
But that's from the beginning of affirmative action, because there was that split. It's marketing. You look at it. I think I gotta hold on. Curtis,
I'm here.
No, I know I'm cutting out your mic. So the thing is, affirmative action had a failure in the very beginning, and that was a lot of people that were mishiring people specifically to sabotage the whole movement, which has now led to a mindset amongst people. I want to have Cash. I want to have your back on this one because somebody has a question, and this is actually a comment of what to do. So Cash brought up the fact that if a white person and a black person next to each other, they get different sentences. Number one, most important thing, yes, is how much your finances can play a role into the lawyer that you get. So it is not directly color based. However, if you come from equal socioeconomic standards, technically, by law, a white person is going to get a better sentence than a black person. That was actually something known as part of a bill that was created by Bill Clinton, supported by Hillary very much so, is involving black people being called super predators.
Super predators, yep.
Super predators was part of the bill, and then it was continued on with the crime bill that was actually spearheaded by you know who. So ultimately, I know we could talk about voting on a different episode, but if the Democrats want to put somebody out there that is very pro-black community, unfortunately, they chose a really crappy version. Go ahead, Cash.
Real quick, because there was a couple comments in there, and I do want to. This is something I was going to touch on at a later time in one of my shows about women, because actually, factually, right now, still women get treated worse than both minorities and like everybody. So yeah, straight up, seriously, they have, bro. They've been unfairly treated, literally in the workplace and
I agree.
In life, like they get treated bogus. That's something that we need to speak on too. So yeah, keep going.
I will say at the beginning of this whole thing, during the entire time, I always say, don't forget, as a man, right? We have male privilege, and again, people are like, well, you don't understand, Curtis, with white privilege. I said, but I'm a man. I know male privilege, and I know that how to a woman can look at me and, well, you got male privilege. Well, they don't know what I've been through. I might have been raped or whatever else. Like Kevin, the police officer, right? But inherently, I do understand that I do get some things better than women, or treated in a different way, or automatically allocated certain things of, oh, he's a man, so he should know this. Or if she's a woman, she might not know, let me treat her this way. That I can't control. But I don't feel bad about it. I just try to use that to empower other women and help men understand how we can change. Yeah. That's that. So I'm 100% with you there, Cash.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up this topic, and then I want to talk to Emily about a different one. But I've seen, again, some other comments on the side. Again, the woman commentary is spot on. I know my mom speaks about that a lot. And there's a bit by Wanda Sykes, if you ever seen her comedy, that on top of being treated unfairly, they also have to be at much more than males at risk of somebody taking advantage of them. And Wanda Sykes is like, I wish I could just go for a run. She's like, I wish I could take my PUSSY off and leave it at home so that I didn't have to feel at risk when I'm going for a jog. Because at any given moment, there could be something much worse happen to them than what can happen to a man. So spot on. It's not just minorities. It's not just black people. All minorities do have a slight difference of opportunity and risk. So, all right. So we're going
to didn't slaves get to vote before women?
Yes.
No. Not slaves.
Black people voted before women.
Yeah.
Yeah, not slaves, Cash. Come on.
Oh,
really?
My bad. Politically incorrect. Call me black punk.
And the last thing I want to say, Denitra Thomas, who I always love in the comments because she always provides a great counterpoint, said something like, black privilege was created by humans. Very correct. So was white privilege. Food for thought. Okay, moving on. Fact. All right, so Emily, this is the topic that I really wanted to talk about because right now I think it's super important. And as a curve model, we're going back into that concept. There's this gray area in our society when we talk about tough topics and everything becomes a politically correct issue. And Bill Maher did a video who I don't always love Bill, but he talked a lot about some of the issues around COVID. And we as a country are so focused on a vaccine and focused on treatment when really there is a huge element of natural health to be looked at. And at one point as a curve model, to me, I see a fine line between where it no longer is healthy and where you go from sexy and confident to healthy. And then we have this area, or to unhealthy, where we have this area where we can't tell people or talk to people about weight because of positive self-image and body image. And that almost allows you go from 14, 16, and then all of a sudden somebody's a 24 and a 30. And they're like, but I'm happy in my skin. But they're also very, very unhealthy. So at what point does that conversation come up and how do we handle that? Because to me, this is the most important part of today's show, is to talk about this conversation, because it's hard because we feel reserved and we're like, but at what point do you need to, because you know what I mean?
We are going to talk about human trafficking, right?
Yes, that is our final. That is our final point. With
tell people that we were going to. Gotcha.
Yeah, that is the next thing, because that is one of Emily's passions. But this one,
that's my spot.
Yeah. So I do want to ask this question because you're beautiful, Emily. But I want to know, where is that fine line? Where is that fine line?
Definitely. So with inclusion, that means for everyone, right? And that's where we start going into the topic of, are we healthy or are we not? But when you go under the umbrella of inclusion, that means regardless of where you're from, your background, what you look like, you're under the umbrella. So I think we're going into, like you said, the next step where it's like, okay, we get that there needs to be inclusion, but we also don't want morbidly obese individuals that have no way of experiencing their life in a healthy way. When you think about it, there's roughly 3 million cases per year of morbidly obese people in the United States alone. So I know when I went into the industry, I didn't think there was any room for me because I was bigger, because I was a 14, 16. The smallest size I've ever been was a size 10. And I was 12 years old. I was raised in the South. I ate good. I worked even harder. I have massive muscle mass in comparison to my body and my structure. But I do think it's a good question, because when I got into the industry, I was in Dallas and I was about to be picked up by an agency down there that was global, and I was super excited. And I got to the final decision and they dropped me. And it was because I wasn't big enough. And I was like, what the hell? We're in like such a weird time to where we're having to be decisive about what size they need to be. And they said, well, the industry's moving up. We want curves to be a size 18 because we want to match what the US is doing right now. We want to match what the world is doing. And the right body size is the average American is a 16, 18. That's a woman. So when you start breaking it down, it's like, is the fashion industry accepting obesity, or is it opening the door for inclusion? So it's such a massive topic, and it's such a food.
I like her.
Because in other cultures, bigger women are beautiful, smaller women are, it's just dependent. But when you look at the United States and you look at the heart attack rate, you look at, because what I like to tell people, because I'm actually on the side, I'm a chiropractic assistant, and I'm massive into natural health, and the body was designed to heal itself. That being said, 90% of the body ailments that make you sick is stress. The other 10% is passed down stress. It's heart disease, anxiety, depression, all those things that they say it's woven into your DNA. Bullshit. How are you going to correct that? How are we going to walk into a better generation? And then it's not necessarily, is inclusion causing obesity? It's the other wave, the undertow of the conversation is the workload of people's lives, the stress, the marital problems, anxiety, depression, PTSD. There's so many factors, over processed foods. So when we start talking about inclusion, we could really branch out to there's such a massive amount of things that have changed because so the morbid obesity rate has doubled since the 1980s. So what has changed since the 1980s? Well, you start looking at food process, you start looking at home life. Do people sit down and have dinner with their families? Our fathers in the home? There's so many things. And when we look at stress being directly correlated to health, we're failing, especially in our country alone. We might be the greatest country. It's not relevant when you really look at home life. You look at all these things, these topics, health. We're failing as a country, and especially when it comes to stress, because stress is the greatest thing that causes health. So that being said, I do believe that it's, like I said, such a bigger topic. I could literally sit here and debate this for hours because I do feel like I'm well equipped to, but I also think to each their own. If someone's going to be unhealthy, we can't stop them from being unhealthy. And like I said, when I came into the industry, I got comfortable because I was like, oh, as long as I'm a size 16, I'm straight. Like, I can do what I want. I don't have to work out anymore. Like, it's fine. I just need to keep, okay, well, I want to, then the expectation came when you've got to walk on stage and those lights are like, is she toned? Does she have cellulite? Everyone has cellulite, but I especially do. That being said, for me personally, I hold myself to a higher standard because I want to be healthy, but I don't really.
That's hard. I find it interesting that we've the way you answered it, by the way, was fantastic, which is we can't fully answer it, but and all of your responses to me make a lot of sense. And I know Curtis and I talk a lot about fitness, or not fitness, but actually diet and health and all the different things. But I get thrown into this concept that we have a country that now is shaming people for losing weight. And I think that's a problem. Not just because of what you said about you weren't big enough to get a role, but they look at celebrities, because that's unfortunately what our country looks at, and they go, oh my God, like this would never been heard of. Oh my God, she lost 20 pounds. Something's got to be wrong. She's, got to be depressed. And we've normalized being overweight more so than losing weight. And I think it's an ebb and a flow. And that's what the United States do. And then it does. And that's what our world does, is there was all those models that were just Twiggy, for example. We went from Marilyn Monroe to having a little curves, to then super skinny, and then finding a little bit more curve, then to even more skinny and tall and perfect. And now we've gotten to the point where we're like, we can't have this conversation. Let's let anybody be whatever size, and we have to find them beautiful. And it is such a fine line and a dangerous line, because as you said, heart disease, heart attacks, all these different things. We can't tell somebody how to be healthy, but we live in a country that supports each other. Our taxes go to health insurance. We have all these different things that go into each other. We have people, of course, asking people to wear masks when they are 4 times each other's size, and saying, wait, who's hurting who? And it's a very gray area. And it's a topic that we have trouble bringing up, and because of the politically correct world that we live in. Curtis, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on that. I have a lot of friends. I don't want to say it like this because I know Anthony's going to say something. Or I can see it. I have friends that are models of different sizes. And this is something I will ask you, Emily, because it goes along with inclusion. But then there's a point where inclusion takes on, less skill. And this is something that I've been told by models who are curved and who are, of the more petite. And they were like, hey, like, we're open to different size models, but what we want is skills. And what I've seen, because I've been to living and working out of Miami, I've been to a lot of Miami swim weeks, and you see, something that happens of what society wants to see in a woman, right? What society wants, because now you see Instagram models coming out that aren't models, don't know how to walk, don't know how to actually do the skill of modeling, right? Nope. And they're curve models and thinner models. They just have a lot of followers, but they can't walk worth a dime, and they don't know how to wear the clothing, and they don't know how to really do what a model does. And then what sometimes happen is people then who aren't models go, oh, it's the curve models messing it up. Look, they don't know what they're doing. No, it's people who know how to walk are what they should be picking, instead of just picking based off followers. And as you as a model, what type of model? As a model, because I know you probably give it your all. Do you see that happening a lot because of just people having a lot of followers?
This is a really good question. I'm actually super excited that you asked this. So watching the modeling industry specifically, like you said, with influencers, I think we're walking into a time where inclusion can be problematic because it's like, I want to be involved in it, so I deserve to be involved in it. But do you know what you're doing? Are you passionate, or is this your purpose? And I've watched the industry slowly get pulled away. You know, think of an agency. They're more or less the middleman. They create the market and they put you in the market. So with inclusion and with people being able to be in the spotlight on social media, we've removed the need for model agencies. So you really, over the next 10 years, in my personal opinion, are going to see it crumble because there's so many people that can say, well, if I have enough followers, I have enough attention, I have that niche, I don't have to know how to walk correctly. I don't have to know how to post correctly or speak or have etiquette, etc. So that's actually a really good question. And I believe that I see it more right now because, like I said, so many people are like, well, as long as I have enough followers, as long as I have the following, I can be what I want to be. When in all actuality, you may have the followers, but they're blindly following you because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't have training, you don't have education. It's not the agency isn't a trend. And a lot of people, and it was so funny because when I first started telling people I was a model, I felt, oh, I like that. I felt that really threw me off. Sorry. That was good.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
When I got into the industry, I was nervous to tell people because I didn't want to be viewed as mediocre and as shallow for being a model. But there's so much pride and there's so much direction that you go into when you start modeling because it's a real thing and it's for so much more humility than you realize. And I do believe that we're getting pulled away from that because of inclusion. When inclusion was really specifically put in place for places like where I got started with Fashion is for Everybody, when I was walking down the runway with people that have cerebral palsy and other types of disabilities, when you're talking about the disability community in itself, that's what inclusion was founded for. Different races, different sexes. It wasn't necessarily found, and so many people are like, well, I want to get on the inclusion train. Well, is your inclusion valid? And we have to find a way to discuss, are you full of shit? Or are we really working towards something that is of value? And if you can't add value,
I like her.
Then what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So
no, that's awesome. That was well said.
Food for thought. Food for thought.
Hold on, is that Curtis?
That's called hard work right there. 6 or 7 years old.
No, that's called
though. Watch out. High school.
That's a terrible. No, Curtis. No, please make it stop. Is that Curtis when he was born? Oh, that.
Why
was
you don't even do that? I'm politically correct, hurt Anthony.
Oh goodness. Okay. All right. I want to move on to human trafficking. Unless Aaron's got one thing.
Last statement on this. As someone who is in this industry of acting and hosting and entertainment, being authentic, being who you are in a role is often more important in that audition than anything else. Casting may know what they want, but if you come in and you show them what they want, that's when they go, I saw it like this, but that is so much better. The authenticity of what you do is better than anyone else because no one else can be you. And I always bring this back to Cash. Cash was so authentic with what he did that's why people flock to him. It is an authenticity. People often don't know what they want, and we try and conform to what we think it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when you conform to what you think it's supposed to be, you lose the value in what you actually are.
Preach that, my brother.
Good job, Ty. Wait, Aaron, what did you just do?
I just tied it all together.
There you go.
Continue.
All right. So
very nice.
Oh,
Emily,
it's a sweet meme. I don't have a comment. That's fine.
Hold on. I'm not done. I'm not done yet,
I'm just
Cash.
kidding. I really don't. I just wanted to tell you, Emily, I think you're dope. Straight up. I don't have anything for you
Thank
other
you.
than you're dope. And
Well,
yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Go ahead,
Cash,
girl.
She's not done.
She's not done. No, because we're gonna do, because as we know, we're doing human
I know.
trafficking,
I want to move on.
and
to the next
I know
one.
Cash is excited about that. But I do have one last question, and this is a yes or no, unless you can truly answer it. Is there a size that you would consider too big on a female model?
Why you gotta do me like that?
It's an honest question.
Personally, no,
Okay.
because it just goes back to beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And when you look at the size, like look at the average size 16 woman, which that's what America's at right now. They're at a 16, 18. I may look the way that I look, but then there's someone next to me who looks, their body composition is totally different from mine. And they may be a size 10. They could be bigger than me. They could have more of a stomach than I could. So no, just no.
Okay. I don't get to ask that question very often in a safe space. That was my question. So, all right. So here it is, guys. This is, I know a lot of you guys are talking about
Yes.
it. It is time to talk about human trafficking. Emily has a heavy passion for it. As some of you guys know,
Sharing again.
been in the news for a little bit. Are you going to screen share, Cash? Is that what you just said?
No, I've been sharing this through the whole process
Yeah.
of us being live. I've been repeatedly sharing as we go on topics. So
Okay, so this is where we're going to talk about human trafficking. So Aaron's going to really quick go in the background. There we go. Aaron's got to run, but he will be right back. So this is what we're going to talk about with human trafficking. So obviously right now there is more news about human trafficking than in history after Jeffrey Epstein suicided himself all the way to today, which is becoming a very interesting topic online, not just because of human trafficking, because we're seeing some of the political left start questioning current leaders that they typically would not have in the past, and looking at certain things going on and where there is no longer anything that seems overly crazy. So I don't know if we want to get deep into, do we think of, are we talking actually, I'm going to let Emily lead the discussion points.
Okay.
Wait, before you
Emily
lead,
and Cash. Yeah.
No. Before you lead, everybody right now, if you could, please, for us, for Be The Change and Streetlights, all my Streetlights that are here right now, I need you to share this right now. Hashtag Save the Children.
Save our children, because Bill Gates owns Save the Children and profits off of it.
Shut your dirty
save
mouth. Is
our
that real?
children.
True.
Go, girl. Yeah, I'm
That's
telling you, she's
so
fine,
bitch.
man. Where do you get her? I like her.
She might. We might have. She
South,
might have
baby,
her own,
let's go.
She might
I'm
have her own
gorgeous.
show on Be The Change, or one of her own
Look
shows.
at that.
We're gonna talk about
Everybody's
that.
sharing. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Good job.
So let's. I'm gonna have you guys lead it. But how deep do we want to go? I really have no idea, because ultimately, I think there's some weird. So you can hate our president, you can love our president. I think it's super weird that we talk about all the bad things that he does, and he signed a $400+ million he signed a $400 million anti-sex trafficking and human trafficking bill yesterday, and there was no coverage. There was nothing. Like, again, he does a lot of wrong things. You say what you want, but if you can't cover the real stuff, then you've lost your point, because that is a huge deal and we ignore it. So with that said,
Yep.
Emily, what do you want to talk about? And we will follow your lead on human trafficking. And why are you so passionate about it as well?
Well, to start, I'm just going to dip a little bit, bridge the gap, and let you know why I would be passionate about it and why it is so close to my heart. So I was raised in a household that was very religious, but also didn't have healthy sexual conversations. And I think that's where we missed the mark. I started being sexually assaulted, like I said, at the age of 10. It continued throughout my life. The first sexual comment I ever got, I was probably 8 years old. And when we start to think about how are we going to have sexual, healthy conversations, people go, I don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable doing that. It's not a place where I want to reside. And my entire basis of conversation is, how can you get outside of comfort where growth is? And when we start discussing human trafficking, I literally just got in a debate with this other day that someone commented on the post you and I had connected on. And I was like, you're not hearing what I'm saying. If you would read the previous comment, what the context was is that actually the last decade, the last generation did not speak on things that had to do with sexual assault. men being sexually assaulted. We're still working on that. Women have a voice, but we're like, men are still trying to get out of that cave where they can say, I was molested. 80% of the molestations that happen are by family members. So that's why the context is skewed. That's why people don't want to talk about it, because the only way to get to the root of the problem is to eliminate certain people in our lives that we feel as though we can trust. And we have to go with our gut and the source of where we believe, and that's our inner voice. And we're not taught that anymore. We never have been taught that. When someone says, oh, Uncle so-and-so made me uncomfortable, they go, oh, that's just how he is, pushed out under the rug. So in order to have the broad conversation about human trafficking, you have to be able to have the small conversation about, in our home, what are we going to accept? What are we going to teach our children? What's viable for sexual health? What's normal? You can scream to the top of your lungs that my family is religiously raised, but you can't prevent someone who is going to have sex from having sex. So how can you prepare your child for sexual interaction? How can you prepare your child for saying any adult that says keep a secret? That's bullshit. You don't do that. You come to me. No good adult is going to tell you keep a secret. That doesn't happen. That's someone trying to control the narrative and manipulate a child. So for me, I didn't have someone sit down and say, here's what healthy sex is. When you ask someone, you say, tell me what consent is. They say, well, it means when someone says no. Well, can you broaden that for me? Because someone can be uncomfortable in a situation and you don't know how to read their emotions, and you're still going to have sex with them. But in that moment, were they comfortable? In that moment, was that a place where they felt like they were divinely connecting with you, or they were ready to get the hell out of there? So when we start breaking down the narrative of what is consent and what does it mean, then we can have the conversation about human trafficking, which, let's just dive into that. 80%. Like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on with human trafficking, and it's been going on. When you sit and you say the cartel doesn't even focus on cocaine anymore, you know why? Because children are $10,000 a pop, and you're in $1 trillion industry. How do you discuss that? That's unsettling that our children, at such a rate that 16,500 children come into America that are undocumented into America. That means that we're fueling something in our great country. We're fueling something negative and dangerous. And these are children that cannot be tracked, and we have no clue where they go. And then when you start talking about sex slavery and the realities of if someone is a sex slave and they are birthing a child, we have no way to find them. So even when we demographically look at the statistics, they're still not correct. So it's how can we get educated about the fact that there are millions of children and women that are in this sex slave industry, because it's an industry. And the real conversation, which I'll skim over because a lot of people get uncomfortable, is that pornography fuels it, because 70% of people that were human trafficked say, I was videotaped. You say, oh, well, I just hop on Pornhub every Wednesday to relieve myself. But you're contradicting what you stand for in your belief statements, because guess what? It's easily uploadable. You don't know where your content is coming from. So when you start saying, how am I going to positively impact the industry and how am I going to stop it? It's, well, what am I viewing? What is the content? What is the concept? Were they drugged? Were they uncomfortable? Did they sign a contract like 90% of women that go into the porn industry do? Mia Khalifa is in a massive, she got death threats from Iraq because she wore things that she shouldn't have worn, and they literally threatened her life. And she was in the industry for 2 months, and they're fueling millions of dollars off of her household name, the whispered household name, of course. And she's literally fighting for her life and only make $12,000. So how are we going to change the narrative? Because it's such a deep narrative. Go ahead, guys. I can rant this whole time.
You're not ranting, you're speaking. There's a huge difference.
You are on fire.
You're
all tuned in. Like, I'm locked on.
Yeah, and I'm learning a lot more. And I can tell some of the statistics you say are triggers, because I know that I've heard the very, very similar ones. And there's always statistics that bug me because they're rooted in stuff that's like, all right, you got to look at it. Like we talk about the 8 million statistic is a tough one because there's no context. We talk about the 8 million kids that go missing in a year. And I'm so glad that it proved my point listening to how amazing you are speaking about this, that you didn't bring that up, because the 8 million kids one, it says 8 million kids go missing in a year. It makes it sound like we're human trafficking 8 million kids, which defeats the purpose of the argument. That's incorrect. That means those are parents that say their kids missing, and out of those 99% come home. You brought up the fact of how many undocumented ballpark are coming across and getting sold directly into sex slavery. So those aren't even included in that 8 million. It's the numbers that you bring up are drastic. The fact that our government covers up so much lately, it bugs me to the nth degree. Cash, go ahead. Yeah, I've got nothing.
So this is the thing that blows my mind, right? The president of the United States signs a bill around this topic, and still the media doesn't cover it. Still, you have accusations that are made about a lot of people. None of them people come out and say anything about it. They say that Hollywood is one of the biggest with this whole sex slave thing. Yet no one comes out and talks about it. Makes me think, maybe, just maybe, we need to do something about Hollywood. Maybe that would end a lot of it. And then also, I was watching a video the other day about Trump. I know people feel funny about the borders, but there's a bigger reason as to why he's so on immigration. And it's strictly because, you notice, he's doing a lot of things to help fight this problem. Immigration is one of those things that he was trying to do to fight the problem of sex slavery or human trafficking. That's one of the things. People think, oh, no, he's racist. No, I think he knows that there's kids being sold when they come across the border. You get what I'm saying? It's a lot. There's a whole lot of crazy stuff, but still the news always twist it or they don't cover it at all, which makes me think, who are these people? Who are these people?
I will say too. Oh, okay. You go ahead. You go ahead, Emily. I'll say it after you.
Are you sure?
Go ahead, Emily.
I can wait to talk. I don't have any problem.
Yeah, and then you will be able to talk, Emily. So
it goes back to human trafficking.
Keep it going, guys. This is fire.
And like Cash said, why isn't the media covering it? Well, it's just like when crack cocaine started getting fueled into the hood. Everyone said, yeah, we might be slanging dope, but we're not bringing it in. It's the people in the suits. It's the people in higher districts. So when we bring it back to human trafficking and that it's $1 trillion industry, you're going to sit here and tell me that you don't think someone in suits isn't involved in the money pit when you start talking about CPS being on literally the freaking stock market? That's insane. The foster system, people are cashing checks on the hope that children are going to be dishomed and disbarred and put in situations where they can't survive and they don't have opportunities. They literally, statistically, when a child hits 18 and maxes out of foster care, they have such a low percentage of making it. And there's people that are sitting in their penthouses right now cashing checks off of that stock market. That in itself is legalized human trafficking. That you're going to tell me that the foster system is on the stock market? When you start getting educated about that, you start going, what fucking bills are getting?
Do your thing, girl.
What scenarios are happening in office to where you're allowing this? Because once you falter to certain things, once you start saying this is okay, you're clearly saying that there's other things behind the veil. Like I said, $1 trillion industry. You're going to tell me suits aren't involved? Bullshit.
Yep.
I agree.
Curtis, before you go, Cash has got to run out. So is there anything last you want to say, Cash?
Yes, look, I love all of you guys, man. My brothers, it's always a good time getting with you guys, man. You guys are amazing. Emily, you have blown my mind. I would love to talk with you more if you're open to it and maybe have you come out breaking the barriers because I want to do a topic about this whole discussion. And I love you. So, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Russo,
I would love that.
make that happen.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. Cool. Cash, take
All
it
right,
easy.
unite, don't fight. Be a street light. Only you can be the change that you want to see in the world. Peace out.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Well, no, I just quickly saying, like, agreeing with Emily on that because my godmother raised, she fostered 150 kids. She adopted 7 because she was an adopted child and she saw what was happening in CPS. And this is something that goes back to a lot of things and how people forget what's going on in America and the history, because you have to have a place to create low income for people to feel well, not feel, but people to be so I don't really care about that as the inner city. They're really poor in the country. I don't really care about them. To they're only focusing on their life, where these people are so poor that they don't get the same amount of resources put towards finding them than others do. And a lot of people don't know, breakdowns of the amount of child sex slaves or people or children abducted, because there's either other things too that they use children for. And it's just crazy to me that people only look at the big and they don't realize that we are all a part of it. And one thing I really like when you brought up, Emily, was the porno. That's something that is really big, and people don't understand the rabbit hole that happens. That once you get in there and you keep going, that these things are embedded deep in there, and you will find it by accident. But in finding it, a lot of people don't.
Scenarios, yeah.
And they don't realize that you are still. Well, I only look at this type. And again, I'm not coming after anybody who's watching porn. I don't watch it, but I also know that there's more to that world. There's more to a lot of things than what people like to think about, because we want to feel comfortable. I don't want to give up certain things because
it's easier to be
my right. And that's one thing I feel like one thing, like a lot of people always jump into like the really high up conspiracy theories that I don't always think are theories. And I'm like, but we also have to look at the micro where we can make real change, because I can't wait for the government to do something, because the government's not going to do something fast enough. What's $400 million to $1 trillion? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If we really want to get rid of it, pass $1 trillion bill. We did it for the coronavirus, and half that money didn't even go to Americans. It went to big businesses, exactly. Right? More than half, right? And it was Republicans and Democrats. People want to be all right and left. They both passed it. They're both in it. They're both about money. And if we really want to make change, we have to be the ones to make that change, because we can't rely on the government to do it, because the government, like you said, CPS is on the stock market, is making money off of this. Even as much as we want to fight it, the best way to hide is say, hey, we're going to fight it, but you still funneling it, because $1 trillion is much bigger than 400 million. It's not like even a drop in the bucket. Company. Say what?
Yeah, it's like a pharmaceutical
company.
Whew, I don't want to get to health, because
exactly.
Anthony, no, I'll go all day. I get me out of that. Anthony, I'll stop talking, because I'm a proponent on health, because when they tell me as a black person I'm supposed to have heart disease, I'm supposed to have this, I said, no, that's another part of the system that's trying to tell me I'm automatically not healthy enough. I automatically have a problem because I'm black, and they forgot the reason that they brought Africans over in the first place to work on this land, because Africans were super strong, super smart, and did a lot of the things to make this country what it is today. And I'm like, you can't take that away from me. I don't see weakness in slavery. I see that there was a strength that they needed, and they did their best, the strongest, to keep those people enslaved, because it was billions of dollars being made. And now all they did was switch. What happened is, and they switched from cotton, they switched to steel, and now they switch to children. And it's something we have to really look at. It's like, guys, this business, the world of business, is such a crazy place that we want to become super rich, but you got to realize, are you losing your soul? And that's something that I really love to have you on here, Emily, because I get excited about child sex slavery. And I was in Columbia, not South Carolina, but Columbia, the country. And we were running a CrossFit gym down there. And we had these SEALs, ex-SEALs, ex-CIX, DA. They did a bust, something like 400 children freed. And they rounded up like 100, these dudes, some crazy number. And they were like, in Colombia, they go, oh, yeah, they funneled them here from America. This is all Americans. And these are Americans telling Americans what was going on. I'm going, hold on, what? We're shipping kids out? He's like, oh, no, this is the money from America coming here. And this is covert. I can't say names. I can't say stuff. But it's just like seeing that when they told me that, I'm just sitting there like, what? I'm American in Colombia, like, and they taught me to think that Colombia is bad, that the cartel. But what you forget, that the CIA, DEA, under Reagan, under all these other big presidents, Democrat and Republican, were down there making money. And the only reason it stopped because they shut them down because somebody got big and was like, I don't want to give to America. That's something that we have to really look at and get political parties out, because money don't see
country in the world anymore, and people can't.
Money don't see right or left. Money see hands. That's it. The hands all look kind of the same. Can't tell.
So part of why we have this show is how to have conversations. And
Sorry.
you're good. No, before you wrap up, I had somebody reach out to me last night talking about some stuff with their family, and it gets a little political. And I just, and this also relates to my post the other day, where it's very frustrating when it comes from a political perspective that we fight so much over whether or not somebody but somebody is going to vote for Joe Biden or somebody is going to vote for Donald Trump. I think there is reasons to go both directions and keeps us as our humanity. I was very offended and upset at a good friend of mine, which I have not had the opportunity to have the discussion with. When I said the way I voted, the way I was going to vote is she said, I go, but does that make, when I presented all the reasons, which is going to go into my next point, when I presented all the reasons, she could not, she questioned my values. She said, I severely question your values, which to me is like, there's so many different things in so many directions. Why question another human being's values, another American's values for the way they're going to vote when right now there's questions on both sides that can be of difference of importance. So the question that I got from one of our viewers was regarding a parent, an in-law that looks after their kid. She presented to her stuff and videos of Joe Biden being creepy. We all know Joe's creepy. It is what it is. But she presented it, and she wanted to. And the in-law had the issue of saying, "Well, it's not that bad." And then she goes, "But you're also around my child," and she wants to have that conversation with her. How do you have a conversation of asking, is this okay? Is it okay that you feel this way about the possible president, that he sniffs children, grabs children on their bra line that's 8 years old, 11 years old? And again, then you have the same question about Trump because he's got pictures of his daughter sitting on his lap. But it's still, again, personal opinion, a little bit
also
different.
got a lot of other lawsuits out there. But again, this is not trying to defame it.
We're talking about sexual. Yeah, we're talking about sexual trafficking, and in terms of young children being mentally put to a point where they normalize it. And again, that was that weird thing about the troll doll too, with the whole little button on the vagine, which was super weird. And then letting that be it, like, that's not even a stretch. That's like,
just keep it to the question.
Good point. Thank you. I don't know how to ask.
You're going because I'm not always here to go against Trump. I just like to make sure we put out both statements for both people.
There's so much.
Trump has some comments that say things about liking younger ladies or some. I just don't. Again, I just want everybody to know we keep it to the question.
Right.
Both sides, both people aren't perfect, but Anthony asked your question.
But no, you're right, and it's hard for me to nail this one down because I want to because last night I had trouble answering her question too. Because it is what do you say? Like, this is your family, this is somebody that looks after your child, and they look at a video and they don't see it as very wrong. When I think anybody, and they've had children, I don't know. Do you know the videos that I'm talking about? First off, Emily, Aaron, Curtis, like of Joe, like sniffing, grabbing, holding, doing these kind of weird things. I'll send it to you later, Aaron. Emily, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah, go ahead. I don't even know how to ask.
I think it just goes back to explaining to the viewer that we all have an inner voice and we all have to stay true to that. And if you have someone in your home that's working closely with your child more than you are day to day and has personal time with them, if you feel as though your beliefs that you want to raise your child with are being conflicted by theirs, then by all means, they've got to go, regardless of the conversation, regardless of what the topic is. If you sit down with your babysitter and they say, oh, well, I'm going to feed your kid a shit ton of chicken nuggets and ice cream and candy, but we're a gluten-free household, we eat things naturally, clearly you're going to have a problem with that. And you're going to say, she's got to go or he's got to go. That being said, I just think yes, the narrative is important, but sticking to the facts of you have to trust your inner voice. And if you're uncomfortable with something, then you handle it at that. I'm uncomfortable. We're not going to work out. Not that I don't think you're a good person, but I just have different values. And in order for me to sleep comfortably at night, my values have to stay where they are because I'm a person that obtains and keeps at my values. So that would just be how I would handle it is, regardless of what the conversation is, if you're not meeting the marks and the beliefs that I have, and you're going to be with my child, you got to go.
Okay. So having that conversation and actually being directive, like, if this is how you feel, I don't care which way you vote, but if you actually think that this is, if you can look me in the face and say that this is an okay behavior, then we have some bigger issues.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about presidential candidates against Trump, against Biden. It's that behavior is unsettling for me. And if it's not unsettling for you, then I question your character around my child. Not that you're a bad person, but I see sexual health in a very specific way versus how you see it. And like I said, it doesn't even have to do with what, like you had said earlier, Trump and Biden both have things about them that are unsettling. But when you bring it down to a household level, you see those acts being taken place. You're like, if you're okay with that, if that doesn't make you go, then yeah, get out of my house.
Yeah. Go ahead, Curtis.
I don't have any children, but I'm right there with you, Emily. If anybody that's like, oh yeah, I don't mind what Trump did, or I don't mind what Biden did, I can't. Nope, because that's not Anthony to tell you like how I look at it. I don't see any of that right. And I'm like, if you don't call it as what it is, and if I can't have you say, well, these are the options, but that aside, that's not my ideology. It's not how I live my life. That, like you said, I wouldn't. Heck no, you're not touching my kids. You ain't getting close to my kid. Or if I don't have a dog, but you ain't getting close to my dog. Especially you ain't getting close to my cat. Ain't nobody, I don't have any of those people.
No.
I travel too much. But
so we're about to wrap up, but I do have to, before I do that, Curtis, discussion. And somebody said it on the outside. And this is, let's have this chat. Because I think it's interesting, because this is the exact way that I had the conversation with the person that questioned my values and characters. And I think what Emily just said is there's bad on both sides to a point where it's like, if there's certain levels of bad, then you have to find in yourself that you can't question me as a parent. You can't question me as a human to go, this is bad enough where I can't consider it personally. So you look at it and you said, Trump likes younger women. Yep, he does. They're called younger women. I like younger women, but they're of age. And so it's interesting that you spun the topic and there is no actual evidence of anything weird with Trump. Whereas you look at Biden, it is him touching where his wife has to pull him off of certain situations where he's acting awkward and inappropriate. So I want to be very clear and ask you that question.
Well, I have friends who are in pageants and models who are in those Trump-owned pageants, and they were teens, and they said Trump came through while the teens were changing.
I heard the same thing.
So it's not hearing from the news. This is from people there. And so for me, as a father, you're walking through where my daughters, and of course I was a what do you call it? Those people that the guys that escort for the women in the pageants. And I know how they just change clothes. It's like models, right?
Yeah.
And when I did do the brief 4 runway shows I've done in my life, Emily, and nowhere near yours, I was like, oh, hold on, you're getting undressed or whatever. Like, that's in the modeling world, but in the pageant world, the women were in their own room. No men were allowed to go in there. And when a woman tells me like, oh yeah, and this is not even like, and it's kind of weird because they didn't feel bad. They're like, yeah, he was always in there. And they're not going against him or whatever. There's like, yeah, he was always walking in there. And this is the teens. And for me as a man, I respect it for all women. Like, I don't want somebody walking in there, even if you own the place.
But I'm able to visually see video on the other side that bothers me. I'm hearing stories, and these are
I don't need to see it. If a woman tells me that, I believe it. So I don't need to see it for it to validate it for me. If they're in that business and they have no reason to lie, it's for me. It's like, okay, well, if they're telling me that, because a lot of times, even in that world of modeling in Miami, a lot of girls will be around some guys, and then I see certain things where it's like, okay, these girls are in this area, but sometimes it's like, well, this.
Also,
I didn't really
also in modeling, often there is the dressing rooms. People change, and I'm not, and I do not want to say that it's okay that Trump is looking at a 15-year-old girl, but I know that at certain pageants it might be the changing, getting done things quick, not okay if they are under 18 years old. But there is a huge difference between me seeing a video of sniffing, grabbing, awkwardly touching, kids pulling away, kids feeling awkward. As a parent, I look at that and cringe, as opposed to hearing of a guy that was probably abusing his power in a room full of young girls. I think there is a huge and drastic difference between the two. That is my personal opinion. and you don't have to have the same thing. But as Emily and you and I've done some modeling, Aaron's a little too short. Just kidding. We've been in the back rooms.
Baby,
Yeah, inclusion. People change all the time. People go in, it's wrong. But to me, there is levels of wrong. And I know Aaron's got to go soon, so we're going to wrap up. But Curtis, go ahead and respond. And then Aaron, you say the first goodbye.
I'm just saying there's no, I'm not condoning what Joe Biden did or anything else. I'm just saying for me as a person, if I was a parent, no matter the age of my daughter, I would not want anybody, if it's young, touching my daughter, or if they're older and she's still the respect that I would want for my daughter. I don't want any of that. And again, like that's just how I look at it. I don't have a level of, how much for me. It's like that I don't like any of it. And so for me, if I had a daughter or any woman that whatever, my thing is it's better to err on the side of let's give them all the respect they need and not walk through, not do it, or not touch or sniff or whatever.
I get it. No, I think
at all. So that's just my idea, because I'm not condoning what he did. I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not saying what Trump did was worse or whatever. I'm just saying I don't like any of it. And if we're going to the point of how are you saying, will I let my child have that conversation with that person, like Emily said, has to have that inner voice to tell them exactly how much they're going to allow to happen or not happen, but like whatever their level is. And I'm murdering it. Sorry, Emily. To allow their child to be watched by that person. And Emily says it much more eloquently than I had. And that's all I got to say about that.
Sounds good. Aaron, we're going to wrap up the show. We're starting with you to say your goodbyes, and then we'll go a little round circle. Go ahead.
Oh man, this was a good one tonight. This was a good one tonight. Man, so many thoughts. I think we have to remember a couple things. I'm trying to go back in what we've talked about because we hit a lot of different things tonight. I think the initial thing that I want to address, to just kind of summarize, is what and how we place value on things. And words are just words depending on the value that's behind them. So in everything that we've said, we all have our struggles, we all have our setbacks, and we have advantages. And I think we all have to recognize that we're all the same in that sense. And we have to be able to see the different colors and see the different races and see male, female, so that we can appreciate those differences. And with this conversation that we've had tonight, it's so strong. Me focusing for this long in the conversation is very impressive. But it has just been so empowering to me and so fulfilling to me to hear a lot of this information and to have these discussions and for people to be on board with having these discussions. So my challenge that I guess that I would address to everyone is, one, to start conversations in a different way, how Anthony is doing it. I call it W Missed. What made you smile today? Starting them in this different way because it's so unique. And I think having the conversation with someone, even if they seem like they're challenging you or they're attacking you, having it in a way that maybe you can level the conversation, be able to relate or be able to have the actual conversation and try to find that way to do that. And I think that's where we'll start to see steps forward in our journey as individuals and as a community and as a country. And I think that's really what we have to do is start to really try to relate to people. And I appreciate all of you for that very reason, that we can have these conversations and open it up and be able to relate and to learn. And thank you.
Awesome, brother. Well, again, thank you, Aaron. And I'm going to go and let you drop off. And then Emily, I'd love you to make some last words as well. Take it easy, brother.
Bye, Aaron. So I really think it's crazy how this happened. Getting on the show is super random, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason and that conversations are powerful if we let them be. And I'm thoroughly happy that I got to be a part of this, because I feel like we kind of chopped off the top, but there's so much more that we could have conversated about. But I think we provide when we have the conversation, we provide and plant the seed for someone to do something else with it. And I think it just goes back to truly just being open and genuine, and regardless of what religious belief you are or anything, we all are, every religion, the basis of it is to meet people where they're at. So regardless of what you believe, regardless of what you think, the mission in life is to meet people where they're at. So when we talk about inclusion, that's my belief, and that's my goal for inclusion is, how can I meet you where you are? How can I serve you? How can I add value to your life while still getting you to pursue what you could do more of that is your purpose? So that being said, I loved this conversation so much, and I feel like my cup got filled tonight. My love language is words of affirmation, so I love to converse and talk. I had a great time with you guys. I don't know how to drop off, so this is going to be awesome.
No, I got you covered. Emily, you were fantastic.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
And you were upside down to me the entire time.
Well, you're welcome.
But hold on, let me just take a picture of this, because people won't believe me when they realize it. This is how I saw Oh, that's me. I saw Emily the entire time. Hold on one second. Golly. All these cool little apps. There we go.
By the way, while he's doing that, just so you guys know, we will. We're gonna have. I'll play the end of this, the video of the news that covered Frank. I haven't watched it yet, so I'll just throw it up on the screen and we'll watch it to end the show. So, Emily, thank you so much. You really are. You're fantastic. So looking forward to doing some more stuff with you. So excellent. Thank you again, Curtis. Wrap it up.
Well, I just want to say I love that I can talk to Anthony and we go back and forth respectfully, and he knows that I respect everything he says, even if his mustache needs to be trimmed. I am a little jealous. Let's just say that. Actually, it's getting there. It's getting there.
No.
It's getting there. I got this though. But no, for real, Kelly, Jennifer, everybody. I love the group of people that have been jumping in. I see people, how they've been talking at the beginning of this, Anthony, and I will say that I see now some changes in how rhetoric and people are using it, and it's really, I love it, because no, I'm not drinking. I'm drinking water. I don't really drink alcohol. It doesn't like my stomach. It's like a laxative, so I don't drink it. But just want to say it's awesome. I love it. I'm supposed to go pick up my dad right now. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, hold on, because I love being on an almost 3-hour show, because
this is a long one.
Yeah, I think it was the longest ever. So
it was. This is a record.
Kristen, you can watch it. Get us some.
Yeah.
Watch.
And Kristen, Chad got his candle. I got mine too. She said Chad and I candles in memory of Frank. I forgot what it said on there, but it was about shining a bright light. And you made Chad cry, Kristen. So well done.
Yeah, so I'm out till next week. I love it. Keep being nice to people and being truthful of people, but have empathy and be the change. We did deliver to Jackson North Hospital. We got that dinner, the lunch and dinner shift, their food. We're doing it again. Make sure you send money. I did have some people that did donate. I love it. Are
we talking? Where's Jackson North?
Jackson North, Miami.
Oh, got it.
But we're doing it again in Miami. I'm just, as we raise more money and I can assemble more people, which I think we can definitely partner with Streetlights as you guys doing it, because the hospitals need help. And they need food, they need love, and let's just keep giving it to them. Dr. Frank was a doctor, and he never stopped fighting, and so that's something that I want to continue to support our doctors.
Excellent. All right, Curtis, thank you so much. I know you got to go, but if you want, it's a 2-minute video from the news. I again have not watched it yet. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Kristen, I want to thank you for sending that. Of course, there are things you do not have to. The key takeaway that I'm going to have on the evening tonight is meet people where they are. We talked with Melissa and learning the full scope, and she's very, very analytical, and she is very big picture minded in terms of stepping back and realizing that all decisions are made for certain reasons, and there are huge mistakes made, but there's only so much that you can do to make those decisions. And then you have Emily come on that speaks incredibly in terms of her passions as well as actual knowledge and basis in order to interact with people. And ultimately, that's the message we want to pass on, is in order to create change, you're not changing people's opinion. You're literally creating a world where we can meet people where they are. That's it. Last thing, I've got the Zoom link coming up. I'll put it on the Facebook group, where again, tomorrow I'm doing something that needs a dress rehearsal, and they need as many people as possible, and you have a chance to win $50, and it's cool. And the more people I bring in, as I said, the more people that go to it, it's like an hour or 30 minutes even, the more people that go, the better chance I have to win a $100 gift card from Amazon, which I will, of course, donate directly back into Streetlights or doing something for this community. I think that's it. That's pretty much a wrap. Yeah, that's it. Next week is a politically heavy show. We've got a gay gentleman that is a uber Republican that is getting terrorized by Antifa in his own town. We do have a lovely lady that is very, very commented on one of my posts, and she is very heavy into being on the Democrat side. And we're going to have a conversation. We're going to bring the two together. We also have another black girl that is a conservative, and we're just going to have this conversation and see how it goes and try to learn how to have the conversations about topics and seeing where people might make mistakes that cause triggers all the same. So ultimately, that's what we got going on for next week. That's what we got going on now. I'm looking forward to watching this video about Frank. Again, we have an opportunity to be amazing to the people in our lives, in the world around us. And I encourage you to take the opportunity to meet people where they are, be the change you wish to see, be a street light amidst all the darkness we have going on in this world, and ultimately have conversation, be open-minded to other people. We see things all differently. While I'm saying that, I'm busy bringing up this other screen so that we can watch this video that just came out. See if I can find it. All right, here we go. All right, again, we miss you, Frank. We are going to consistently, daily learn exactly more about ourselves and learn how important it is to be kind to people around us. And yeah, that's all we got. I'm going to try to zoom and make that bigger. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. Love y'all. Thank you again. And here is the video.
Guys, Tom, the doctor, was known for his medical skills, but he could act as well.
Yeah, that's right, Justin. I spent the morning in stitches laughing at Dr. Frank Lockwood's fellow actors and the stories they shared about him. They say he was a bright light, someone who could heal people with his hands and with his talent. Now the doctor has taken his act to the next stage.
I think he got joy out of seeing other people happy and smile.
Chris Claybo says Dr. Frank Lockwood was the kind of person who spent every waking moment of his life helping people find joy and find good health, even when his health was failing. Claybo says Dr. Lockwood consoled him and told him what to do right before he found out he had COVID-19.
He then casually mentioned that he's had COVID for, almost a week now.
Lockwood tried to fight off COVID-19 for 6 weeks, then went from treating patients for the virus to dying from it. Lockwood had practiced in Henry County, but he was loved by friends, family, and patients everywhere.
He gave himself to the world, and the world got to take him.
Lockwood was a legend in the improv acting community.
Dr. Frank,
Yay! I'm gonna do an impression of Lost Expense too. Gosh, Dr. Frank's so fun. That was the doctor on a Biscuits and Gravy virtual show back in June. Lockwood was such an improv star, the Village Theater paid tribute to him with this banner on its page. Fellow actor Michael King says Lockwood was everyone's friend and everyone's doctor. This guy's ripple effect in life is, I don't think we'll ever know. And Dr. Lockwood leaves behind a husband and loads of family, friends, and patients who loved him. We're live in Clayton County. Tom Jones, Channel 2 Action News.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Frank. I was hoping they were going to end with his last bit, but we're going to have a whole montage of stuff for Monday, and you guys are hopefully going to enjoy it. Thank you. Whoa, that was loud. Whatever that was. Thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and God bless.